Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate everyone being here on time. So welcome. We have a full agenda because we are getting down to D-Day. So here we go. Again, this is a private meeting that is held in public. So it is the October 23rd meeting of the 21st Century Commission. Once again, we are the fact finders. We will be presenting our proposals to the Board of Education on November 3rd at their board meeting. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that's going to work, but it'll be on November 3rd. The meeting will begin at 6:30 at the boardroom in West L. So we encourage everyone to be there for that. And I'll talk a little bit about when we get down there. Ed and I had the opportunity this week to meet with Dr. Crawford and Mrs. Bussey and Mr. Graham and kind of talk a little bit about the time frame. So I want to be able to give you that information so that you know where we're going with it. It's important to know also that that night, I would like to make this public on YouTube, that the Board of Education will not be making a decision that night. We are simply giving them the information that night, and then they will be going from there. But they will not be making their recommendation or decision that night. Yes, Eric?
Has the board made any indication if they're going to have an open public forum? Because I mean, we made ourselves available for questions from the community. Obviously, the system administration made themselves available for questions in the community. I think the elected officials on the board should also make themselves available to take questions and possibly respond to the community, and not just in a one-on-one fashion like they do with the current.
Correct. Well, what I'll do is let me tell you a little bit about our meeting then, and maybe that'll clear up some of the information. So we met for about 3 hours on Tuesday. And at the conclusion of the meeting, we did have an opportunity to ask Mrs. Bussey what the Board of Education's plan was as far as how they were going to handle it. So they are going to, at this particular point, things could change, but at this point what they're looking at is doing 5 to 6 sessions. They will be private meetings held in public, much like a board meeting, and they will be as a board discussing, but anybody will be open to come to hear the discussion. I did ask for a time frame because I think, just like we had a time frame, I think it's important to know what their thoughts are. And Mrs. Bussey said that it is her understanding that they would like to put this to bed prior to the Christmas holiday. So roughly about 6 weeks that they'll be running that, and we'll see what happens from there. So as far as a public meeting, I did ask that question, and the response that I got was that there would be 5 to 6 private meetings held in public.
Okay. I'd like to go along with most of our recommendations that the board make themselves have not just a private meeting in public, but have an open forum like we've all had, so that, again, they were the ones we elected to represent the community in guiding the district. So that's, I just want to...
Yep, and we can talk about that when we get down to the presentation for the board meeting. Okay. Any other additional recommendations that we would like to include in with our packets. So hopefully that clears things up a little bit. We are going to the board, and we'll talk about that when we get down to the presentation, the actual pieces of how we're going to do that. So we'll get that going and get that ready. So again, just like to welcome everyone. Additional ideas and proposals. Before we get to that, I'm just going to kind of turn over to Brian Graham to talk a little bit about something that we've heard some rumblings of, and that is the regional high schools. I know Dr. Crawford had addressed that, a countywide school system, regional high schools, reason to stay strong, And interestingly enough, this was on the Board of Regents agenda not long ago. So, Brian, if you want to just
absolutely.
kind of share, because I think this is actually pretty fascinating that all of a sudden it's just appeared on here.
Yeah, that was a great introduction. So welcome everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. I won't take too long. It would be great if we had a short meeting tonight. So
Yep.
that would be awesome. But I did want to share this with you mainly for the reasons that Lisa shared with us. Just on October 20th of this, recently, the Board of Regents has, identified legislative priorities that they see and feel as very important for moving public education forward in New York State. And one of the priorities that are listed here is creating regional secondary schools. And just as Lisa alluded to, Dr. Crawford has really talked about this already with all of us in one way, shape, or form. We started off these 21st century meetings talking about what is it that we value. What do we value in West Seneca? What do we want? What are the community mandates that we all believe are important to sustain? Maybe to, maybe there are new things, maybe new community mandates that we want in our district. And one of the ways to get at what it is the community values is really the process and the work that we did as a committee. Identify those things, prioritize them, and share them with the board, which I know that's going to be part of the package that is shared with the board. But when we start looking at the local control of a school district, electing our officials and managing our tax dollars for the work of school, and then you see a proposal from the state that comes out and is encouraging districts to merge, to have regional high schools. To me, this is the tipping point to maybe the future of public education and what the vision is from New York State Ed, maybe countywide school districts. To me, this is a tipping point that regionalizing high schools, you begin to lose that local control, just pure and simple. And when you lose your local control at your high school, it would seem to me that middle schools and elementary schools wouldn't be too far away from that. So I think we all agree that the better we can manage our finances and control our fiscal destiny, the better off we will be to appreciate our local control, have our own West Seneca School District, be as strong as possible to encourage the things that we believe are important and are part of the community mandates. So if you get a chance, I can maybe email this file to you, so if you wanted to distribute it back out to everybody. There are other elements, and let me just say, there are other legislative priorities by the regents that are very valuable. There are some really good things in here. But I just thought that this, was really something that kind of brings us back together as to what our mission is to make this district as strong as possible. There are some other pieces in here that talk about other boards being able to take over school districts. And I'll just find it real quick. So there's a proposal in here to, if a district is insolvent, how another board of only 3 people could be used to oversee the district finances. I think this is a support and intervention in chronically underperforming schools. School boards play a crucial role. This whole paragraph is talking about how important school boards are. Chronically underperforming districts typically have 1 or more schools identified as priority schools. Fiscally, these districts fail to exercise appropriate fiscal management by failing to take actions necessary to keep the district's budget in balance and to maintain appropriate and consistent fund balances. So they're listing that as an issue. Keep in mind that the state has withheld up to $35 million in state aid for West Seneca. And then by implementing a tax cap, it's very difficult to raise revenue when you're not getting the state aid and you can't raise the revenue beyond, a 2% tax cap. So in essence, then, they're coming up with a legislative priority that identifies how to help underperforming schools or schools that are in fiscal stress. And these are their solutions. And one of the solutions is to appoint an independent review team for the most troubled school districts to review the Board of Education actions and omissions. There is, upon a determination of the Board of Regents that governance problems, let's see, it says the regents could appoint a 3-member education oversight board with all the powers and duties of the Board of Education. So they're starting to come up with, ideas on how to help, districts that need help. And I think, again, this kind of emphasizes the mission of this commission to build a strong and fiscally healthy West Seneca so that we can control our own destiny for our kids. So, any questions about this?
That just seems like it's going to rally the state against that plan.
Against
the plan that they're suggesting. There isn't anybody in the state who has a history of anything like that in the schools, and there's going to be a huge pushback should they really get serious about that.
Right. I mean, there is some language in here that would allow the community to vote to merge, to make regional high schools, so that gives a little bit of control back to the community. But just keep in mind that if the state aid spigot is turned off and we can't raise revenues, it's going to be very difficult to have all the extra things or all the things that the community believes to be valuable. But then in comes the regional high school that can offer all of the fine arts and all the wonderful things that it's very difficult for a high school to offer if they're living in an environment where there isn't revenue and there isn't state aid. So to me, this is the warning sign, the shot across the bow, that this is kind of what the state envisions happening, and it would be great if we can protect what we value here in West Seneca.
Right, absolutely. And I think the other thing that's interesting about that too is that with the fund balance piece, the state told us to spend our fund balance. They told us to use that fund balance, and now it's coming back to
You're right.
be in our face.
Absolutely.
That we're not, we didn't do the right thing per se, or we shouldn't have. And so that's kind of interesting. So we've got room over here, Guy. You can pull a chair up over here.
So thank you, Lisa. Thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you definitely make sure that gets out, because just breezing through, I saw.
Guy, there's space over here so you can do with the rest of the group.
Taps,
Yeah, I
Chair
saw
right
the
over here,
yeah.
next to Scott.
This goes back to almost 10 years ago when I went to that state senate hearing, and this is what they were talking about. And Mr. Ogilvie is very big opponent of this regionalization.
Yeah. So I think we'll be hearing more, definitely more about that. And now, interestingly, that it was, on the agenda for the Board of Regents. So definitely something, one more reason that we want to be strong, both financially and with our programs. So there's both aspects of, the strong piece. So, okay. All right. So thank you for sharing that. And if you shoot that to me, and then I will get that out to everyone else. In your packet, there is a lot of information. So what we're going to look at next is there's little building maps with that are kind of color coded and so forth. And Joe, I'm going to just ask, this came from Joe Farr, who was able to put this together just looking at being able to separate certain buildings and so forth. And I think this is important for people to see. And I think it would behoove us to go kind of building by building of how we could use different repurpose. We've talked a lot about mothballing recently, and also the fact of, the state would like us to repurpose buildings. So instead of, selling a building, which we thought at the beginning could possibly be the best solution, one of the things that we're looking at is how would we repurpose it. So one of the things that we've talked about is how would we repurpose one of the buildings into a district office. So Joe, if you want to just kind of talk maybe a little bit about this, or we can just go through whichever way you want to do it. I'm putting you on the spot,
Thanks,
I know.
Liz.
I know.
What I did, I just took each building and did a possible scenario. Staying cheap, like Allendale, if you look at it, what I'll call the pink area, in the red circles, one has scribbles, okay, that's just putting a double set of doors there. The other end was, you know, making some kind of entrance that says this is district office, okay? That would separate that from the rest of the building. You could rent the rest of the building, you could use it for pre-K, you could use it for
BOCES.
anything you
Yeah.
wanted. So I did that on each building, just, you know, did a little scribble on what the possibilities are. Next one's Clinton, which will mirror Potter's, and it will be using the upstairs for district office. Putting a door downstairs, you know, sign at the entrance over on the side there, and that one's done. Some take a couple more doors, but overall, none of them are anything major to get separation so the building can be used for something else. Next one on the plate is Northwood. As you see, there's a little blue area downstairs that, you know, could be separated. Then you have the entire upstairs on the back of the page. You know, whether one's district office, you know, you can reverse anything. You know, these are just to let everyone know that there are possibilities to divide and conquer.
So if you remember when we went to visit certain buildings, many of the elementary schools, I think do all have second floors. Do all of them have second floors? No.
No.
Allendale doesn't, but everybody else does, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's just another scenario for Northwood. Potters basically mirrors Clinton Street. West Elementary. Just with 3 levels in there, you know, bear with me as you follow through, but, you know, that would be a little more extensive, but not undoable, you know. I'm not talking $100,000, you know, it's just a few $1,000s you could separate if you wanted to. West Elementary, there's another scenario for it. And then they did one for Winchester. And Ebenezer, all Ebenezer shows is space that is presently occupied and space that has potential for district office. We originally were talking about district office over there. And
Your office.
well, it is. We originally talked about that, but if we're gonna have a building mothballed or something, there might be a better location for it. That's, you know, if we got rid of the buildings and had no other space, Ebenezer would be the
Right.
space to go.
Okay.
That's all. Amen.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about the information from? Yep, Bob.
Well, some of these seem to also be part of elementary schools, which I thought was part of what we wanted to separate.
Well, this was just a scenario, if we were to close any one of these buildings, that's what we could do with that building.
Partial uses, okay.
Yes, that wasn't having, you know, full school in a building still. That was if we close this building, how can we separate it up and, right?
So there's no way of taking West Elementary as it stands and blocking off, like you have all these doors and whatnot, and still leaving administration there and not having access to the students? I mean, for the public, I'm saying.
If everybody came in through HR and yeah, it could be done.
I mean, because my thought is the cost that he came up with of moving us all over to Ebenezer was an enormous cost. And then when you, and I know you figured in the rewiring and all that, I'm just wondering, would it be possible to put doors?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a nice opportunity to give decision makers some options about the buildings.
Right, I would think if they look at this, they'll be calling me in and saying, what can we do? Okay, that's all I wanted to do. I sent this to Lisa saying I think we should include this with our packet to have them thinking about it.
Okay. All
And
right.
even if you could use part of the building for the district offices, and then could you mothball the other part? Like say,
Sure, absolutely.
and you could keep it. So you could still realize some of the cost of mothballing the school, but maybe just using that one section for district offices, but then the rest of the building's in essence closed off.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Good point.
I think
Right.
Joe and I were having a conversation on that because he said basically, in order to mothball it, you still have to maintain it in some way, shape, or form. So if you're going to still maintain it, it might be a good idea to move us into that building.
Well, if you mothball a building, you still have to do the lawn care, you have to do a lot of the maintenance, right?
You have to keep
So-
heat on in it and so forth.
You don't have to keep it as warm.
Right, that wouldn't be my personal preference, but I'll keep my personal opinions out of this.
Well, I think it's important though because it's your team that's going to be taking that, going to be doing that. And so how logical is it, I guess would be one of the words. And is it really workable? Or is it better to, like we're saying, to move district office into possibly one of these other areas that, then we would have people there. Something to keep in mind. The other thing is too, if we reused it for a rental, and you might be thinking, well, what would we want to rent to? One of the things is we may choose to rent to like a BOCES program. So BOCES, which it could be a contract with either like a BOCES 1 or a BOCES 2 for special education children. They're always looking for district space. So that could be a possibility of having them use some of the rooms there. So that might be something that we could do with the space also. And then as long as we were able to, and Joe's done a good job of showing the little red squiggles of where the doors, where the blockage would be, of the possibility of doing pre-K in those buildings. One of the things that we had talked about too when we were making our wish lists back in the beginning was we talked about not only a pre-K center, but we talked about the possibility of a pre-K with a daycare attached to it, and one of the reasons that we talked about that was with the UPK, our little friends that come to UPK are only there a half a day. So for parents, that becomes really tricky of getting them from UPK, whether it's getting them there in the morning possibly or in the afternoon, but if they're working, and then what do they do for childcare? So that could possibly be another rental piece if we had UPK in one of the facilities. We could also look to see if somebody wanted to rent, being another entity, whether it be like a EduKids or a Page One or a daycare provider, and have that available, and then we would have it on site. We could also possibly open that up to staff if they were looking for daycare for their children also. So I mean something kind of out there, but it could be a repurpose with that too. I mean there's a lot that we would need to investigate in that particular scenario, but I know like for Ed, UPK becomes an issue because of what do you do with the little ones the other half of the day?
Yeah.
So.
Around me.
So, Anyway, but thank you so much for that. We are going to include this in our packet.
Joe, can I ask you one question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
How much cheaper, like not like dollar figure, but like maybe 25%, 50% cheaper to move district offices to a school building versus Ebenezer? Like because I'm assuming Ebenezer, there's a lot of wiring that needs to be done. How much of that wiring is already in the school that,
That's a good question.
you know, would be much, where it would be much wiser to say put them in a mothballed school versus Ebenezer, because it's going to knock 25% off the cost because most of the wiring is
I
done.
would put the number around 20%.
Okay.
Okay. So roughly, we're looking at if we can put district office into a school building, a 20, possibly up to a 20% savings. That's a rough figure, but there's that, you know, gives us up to. So that's good to know. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Joe? Okay. All right. Subcommittee updates. I know that the subcommittees have been working feverishly trying to get us ready. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Joe, if you can separate West L district offices from students, why hasn't it been done at this point? Was it never thought of, or is it been budgetary reasons? If the reason why...
No, nobody's ever pressed the issue. I mean, you know, again, I know there's all kinds of beliefs. I don't personally believe that district office being there is a bad thing.
Okay.
That's, again...
I'm just asking because I remember
hit me for that, but
it seemed to me like it was like, okay, this has got to happen because it's not safe. That's what I've been going under this time. You know, like I thought Mr. Dens had said that that was like something we really were focusing on. Regardless of what happens now, we don't have any kind of a plan at all to separate them at that school? Like it's never even been looked at?
no.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so subcommittee updates. In your folder, in your packet, just to let you know, the first packet that you have here is from Brian's subcommittee and Guy's subcommittee. So what we have there is they have done a yeoman's job of trying to get all of this information together. So what we're looking at with that, and we're going to actually go through, I think it's important to go through each one tonight and look at and make sure that we have everything that people are comfortable with. If they think of anything else for advantages or disadvantages, impacts that we can add on before we get them to the board. Because we have basically 1 week to collate this packet and get it ready for the board. So proposal 1, move district offices out of West Elementary to Ebenezer. Advantages. Number 1, safety of kids, limits outside adult contact with kids, opens room for more classrooms, other uses at West Elementary, centrally located. Disadvantages, less room for district events. Number 2, cost to move offices. And can I just, and I know I have the paper, I just don't have it in front of me, what our estimated cost was to move.
I thought it was $135,000.
Yep, okay. All right, we'll add that, if that's okay, gentlemen, we'll add that. I'll add that in. Okay.
Joe, it could be cheaper just to separate things here, right?
Yes.
And when you're saying centrally located on this, does that mean that Ebenezer is centrally located?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Smack dab in the middle. The impact on district events would rotate among schools. Offices would move to centrally located office. Cost to move offices. Okay. Is there anything else under advantages or disadvantages?
Joe, would there be any additional cost for parking?
That's included in there.
Oh, the 135.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So scooching on to the next one, proposal 2. You'll notice the school fact piece is going to run right across. And I do have the Promethean board count. So I just got that tonight, so we can add that into the school facts. So enrollment, and this is current as of the day we did it. So it always, always moves a little bit, but current as to the day we did it. 562 children, building capacity 720, building utilization 78%, grades K to 4. And I'm sorry, this was closed Clinton and shift attendance zones. Number of classrooms 32, acreage 11, pool no, Title I school no, special education district classes yes, a 1211. Number of Promethean boards 30. Age of the building 47 years, square feet 70,000, age of the roof 19 years, window status replaced in 1990, additions 2005, art room, heating, cooling systems, hot water, auditorium no, stage and cafeteria, Leader in Me program no. However, they do have the Pillars program.
Yeah,
so
maybe we can list the what character.
I think maybe instead of Leader in Me program, we put character education, because every building isn't necessarily, every building has a character education program. It just may not be Leader in Me. And that is up to the specific building to decide on their character education program.
The windows are newer than 1990. Those were 2005.
The Promethean board count, I'm assuming none of those are mobile
No.
units.
They're not, yes they are.
Some of them are.
Some of them
That's
are?
grand total of all the boards.
Okay.
I can't break it down by mobile.
Mobile ones, obviously, there's no cost to move, correct? Besides a truck?
Minimal,
Yeah.
a big truck.
Do one at a time.
Thank you. So the windows were 2005. Okay. Character
So you're gonna
education.
change that?
I am.
Character education, and it's gonna say.
8
yes.
pillars.
Oh,
Yep.
pillars.
Six
Oh,
pillars.
6 pillars, sorry. 6, I was putting some more in.
There's
Sorry.
been 2 added, Eric.
I don't know what they are, but we just added them. Okay. East Elementary Schools. This would mean the East feeding schools would be Allendale and Northwood. West Elementary Schools, Potter Road, West Elementary, and Winchester. Advantages: more parking at Northwood and Allendale. Keep an East feeding elementary school in the north and the south. Not a Title I school, so no issues moving equipment. Could be sellable. Disadvantages: shifting the attendance zone of the East Elementary students that just changed schools. Parking issues at Potter Road and Winchester. Space to add additional parking at these schools. School is near 80% building utilization, which is ideal. Second highest enrollment among elementary schools. Efficiencies realized from the East Elementary merger. Impact on district: shift attendance zone using Union Road as the east-west boundary. Enrollment would even out at middle schools and high schools. Option for high school students to remain at current school. Decision would need to be made regarding transportation for students that elect to stay at current school. Middle school students would move to proper high school. Priority is for elementary schools to attend the closest school to their house that feeds the proper middle high school. Would like the same educational opportunities and values for the East and West students. Save money on school operating costs. District offices moved out of West Elementary. By increasing building utilization, provides opportunity to build an addition to West Middle to accommodate more students and apply for state aid. Possible location for district offices. Possible to rent space to BOCES. Changes Allendale to an East feeding school to help students attend the closest elementary school to their house. Okay. Any questions on that particular proposal?
Can someone expound on number 8 for the impact on the district, building an addition to West Middle? I mean,
Right.
if we are equalizing numbers on both sides, why do you need to build an addition onto West Middle?
Because West Middle isn't doesn't have the space to carry the 5 through 8 as compared to the space that's available at East Mill right now.
What's the most kids that West Middle would hold? We have that right in our,
Yeah, you have that picture.
yeah,
1,035.
1,035. So that would be the most kids ever at the high school then too, right? Would be 1,035?
Yes, even though it can hold 1,800.
Okay.
I had a question about number 4.
Okay, hang on 1 second, Joan.
Okay.
So, just to clarify number 8. By increasing building utilization, provide opportunity to build an addition to West Middle to accommodate more students and apply for state aid. So, this one is recommending to build an addition, is that?
No, what it was at the last meeting in talking to Joe, with the way our current building utilization percentages are, we would not be able to apply for state aid to put an addition onto West Middle because we're not using our schools at the right percentages, so it's not an aidable addition. If whatever the board decides, if we close the school and increase the utilization at the elementary school level, it provides the option to possibly build an additional on the West Middle and have it be aidable because now we are at higher utilization at the elementary schools. Right now, the big issue with the middle school is, and the whole reason why you have to shift the attendance zones is for the simple fact that in the current state as how everything is broken up, you will never be able to fit 5th graders into West Middle. It just will not physically happen.
For 5 years.
For a long time, even past 5 years. Because even when I looked at what K through 3 is as 4 years, and that's 1,800 kids, and that's 5 through 8 in 6 years from now. You're still 800 kids over capacity. You're never. It's just I don't see it ever happening. So the suggestion I had to Joe is, well, why can't we just build an addition on the West Middle to accommodate the extra kids? And he says, well, you can't because it's not aidable. Well, we could. It's just not aidable. And obviously, paying 22% versus 100% is a much better percentage for the addition.
Right, and as we go through, I mean, if anyone's ever considered an addition, you have to realize it's probably 5 years out.
Right.
Okay, that's not a turn it around and build it the following year.
That's a really lengthy process. I
Right.
mean, you have to get approval before you even, do anything. You have to get approval from the state, and then you have to have your architects drop your plans, and then you have to meet with state ed, and then state ed, we know how quickly they move, and it's very lengthy. The district would have to approve a bond issue. So it not that it can't be done, but it's not like putting addition on your house. It's not that speed.
I'm going to say impact on the district. It says by increasing utilization, the opportunity is there. Not, you're not recommending to actually do it at this point.
No, it provides the
Right.
opportunity.
So basically, it just says you're okay to do an addition because we're utilizing our buildings better.
Mhm.
But I'm not arguing with you because you're the number guy. I thought when we were in our subcommittee, we ran the numbers, and it looked like if we did nothing for 5 years, in 5 years, that's when the 5th grade could move up. Did that change?
No, we were thinking as to would it fit into the high school. And when I gone through the numbers, there is, if you keep those 4 schools as West feeding schools, if you kept all 6 elementary schools open and made no changes.
I really thought those numbers were in 5 years we could fit 5th grade in the middle school if we didn't do anything different. And I'm not arguing with you. I'm just that's really what I've been going under this whole time. So
Yeah, because even the
that,
current kindergarten class is 469 kids.
right.
Even if we stayed at that enrollment throughout everything, even if you take it to 450 to make math easy, that takes you to 1,800 kids in a 4-year span.
But how many on the west side?
Well, that's what if you looked at. That's what's the 469 is what's currently in those 4 buildings.
Okay.
Is 469.
Okay.
And the only reason why I asked the questions, I thought that and I apologize for missing the last meeting, is that by shifting the attendance zones, I thought that would make space in both buildings to have 5 through 8 in each building. That's the only reason why I asked the question.
Yeah.
So, which then, if that's the case, then doesn't that negate the need to build an addition.
He's not saying that you should build an addition, he's saying the opportunity then allows the district to apply for aid.
Okay.
For
But
an
it's
addition.
just in case people don't want to shift the attendance zones. That's the other
Okay.
thing too.
I
is
see what you- okay.
The
All
board
right.
could say, I don't want to shift attendance zones. And then if you don't want to shift attendance zones, then these are things you have to do to try to fit kids. So,
Perfect, thank you.
we're trying to hit every angle as far
Yep.
as what they may
No, I think it's
or may
great. I
not.
think it's great.
Joan, question on number 4.
I guess would be Northwood.
Why do the kids have that they can go to the proper middle high school? I mean, shouldn't that be dictated by the district?
Well, yes, it is. What we mean by that is that if you're currently at a West feeding elementary school, or a West elementary school, like West, Winchester, Potters, you would go to West Middle or West High. And that would keep you going to that instead of flowing east to a farther middle or high school. That was the whole one of the things that we wanted to do in the subcommittee was have the kids go to the closest school to their house instead of being bused across town to a school further away when one was closer.
So it'd be up to the parents?
No, it wouldn't be up to the parents. It would be based on where you live.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll
So,
be based on where they put the attendance zone for the
Yeah,
school.
well, yeah, exactly. They should.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, they shift the attendance zone. You know, like if you had two people that, you know, your West and Allendale are right next to each other. Well, if you take Allendale and make it an east feeding school, you could have somebody who theoretically may say, well, you couldn't actually say you live closer to West because it's further back in the parking lot, but somebody could say I live closer to West, and you say, well, you're living in East District, so that means you would have to go to Allendale, not West. So that's how that whole thing came up, is if there was one that you said, because in some of the later proposals you'll get to where kids are in the southern part and they're still in an east feeding school, but if you don't put an east feeding school in the south, Clinton becomes the closest east feeding school for them. So our thought was you don't want to take a kid and put him in the west and then all of a sudden have West Elementary have some kids in there going to east and some kids going to west, because now you got people there that are going to deal with potential at the 5th grade level, their friends going to a different school. So we think that we're trying to think, how do you keep kids staying with their friends all the way from kindergarten to 12 as best you could. So, because I know in years past, people have said that Allendale was a split school. There were schools that were split before, and we just didn't care for that idea.
Thank you.
my question I have one other question then with the high school. So we know that with the middle school, we would need to move children immediately to make what the attendance zone would move immediately. So are we putting in here anything about, we had talked at one point about high school children that were currently in high school, whether they were in 9th grade or whether they were in seniors, that because the high schools aren't as impacted in this, that they would finish out their career
Yes.
Yes.
is that,
What we
can you
figured with that is that's kind of what's there is prior, or the option for high school students to remain at their current
Okay,
school.
okay.
Our thought process there was we didn't want to automatically say that you would finish out at the high school that you're in, because what happens if you're a freshman now and you have an 8th grader who's
Yep.
moving up on the other side? You say, well, you know what, I'm just going to move them both, let them both go to East so my kids are in the same school.
I see what you're saying.
So we didn't want
How
to
it
automatically
impacts
say
the
that you were
family.
automatically going to move them. We would give the parents at that point the option: do you want to stay at the West track or the East track, or do you want to switch over at that point with the high school? But we also realized that one of the things we didn't want to have happen, we're having 2 buses going down the same street, so obviously the transportation of those kids also need to be addressed.
Right.
You know, 11th, 12th grade kids, chances are, have access to cars, you know, different ways to get them. But I know Holly mentioned there's been some kids at the elementary school level where they started at Potters, they moved to the West L area, and they asked if they could finish out at Potters, and she's like, yes, you can, you just got to bring your kid to school, and they drive their kid to school every day. So we figured that if they have that option at the elementary school to drive, then at the high school level they should have that
Perfect.
same part.
Okay.
But those options would go away at the elementary school level.
Yes. And the middle school level.
Yes.
And within 4 years, they would be gone from the high school level. It's just a temporary, and I think maybe, I don't know if we need to put that, you know, I mean, technically it would be within that cycle of high school, and then it would be done, if I'm
It'll be
correct,
done. You
right?
wouldn't have to worry about it
Right.
So you could just add in there for 4 years.
for 4 years. It really doesn't matter at the high school level anyway.
Technically, you only have to leave it in there for 3.
No.
Because if
Yeah.
you're looking at freshmen,
They're
No,
entering.
if they're a
or they'd be a
freshman now.
freshman
Right.
now, so,
They would be a rising sophomore.
right.
Yeah. I just think that we might want to spell that out just to,
I would also throw in there that just for the disadvantages, number 5, just to kind of clarify that a little bit more. It just says disadvantage efficiencies realized from East Elementary merger. Just to, I know it's purely semantics, but just so that as the board is reading it, they understand what that means. So I'm assuming it means you lose the efficiencies gained. So I would just, again, purely semantics, but I'm assuming that once we hand this off, they're going to review it over time, and we want to make sure that's kind of clearly spelled out there.
all right, okay. Any other questions?
So I'll add in front of it a possibility of losing
Yeah, and
efficiency.
like I said, I know it's nitpicky and I know it's kind of whatever, but
Oh no, that's good. That's what we want. I want to put in there is,
Don't apologize.
yeah, there's,
I am.
What's number 9, where are you gonna, you haven't decided where you're putting the district office, or?
well, based off of what Joe's presented, there's a packet Joe gave where he shows that, in essence, we could put district offices, if we mothball an elementary building, there is a place to put district offices within that mothballed building. And we could either rent the other part of it or mothball the other part they're not using. It saves about 20% of the relocation costs for putting them into Ebenezer by putting them into what if a school is mothballed. So that was the reason why I knew Joe was working on that. So in the packet, there's a whole bunch of maps that show possible other uses for the building and stuff like that. So if they decide that they want to put it in a different spot, then
So we can go back through and.
Do you need the envelope?
It's going to have to all be fixed. No, thanks, yeah. All right, so proposal 3, close Northwood Elementary and shift attendance zones. They have the leader, okay, so Character Ed is Leader in Me program. And the Promethean boards are 30. Okay. So this takes close Northwood and shift the attendance zones. The east feeding schools become Allendale and Clinton. The west feeding schools are Potters Road, Westdale, and Winchester. Advantages, low capacity. Right now it has 432 students. Keeps an east feeding elementary school in the north and south. Disadvantages, shifting the attendance zone of the east elementary students that just changed schools. Parking issues at Clinton, Potters Road, and Winchester Elementary. Space to add additional parking at these schools. Lose nice big parking lot. Nice playground. New roof and windows. The roof is only 10 years old. Windows status 2005. Title I school, so possible issues moving equipment. Disrupts the ESL program.
Doesn't it also disrupt the preschool? They have 6 preschool classes there?
They have 3. Well, yes, 3
Yeah.
class, 6,
3,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Section.
So it disrupts current pre-K.
Brian, I thought
I have a, there's a spot that I added that's not on this one. It, on each one it says UPK yes or no.
Okay.
And then what it actually shows as well is building utilization based off of how you track it. And I didn't know, you'll notice on a lot of my things when I put it, it'll either say plus 18, plus 36, only because I don't know if when they count number of kids in the building, do they count UPK students as a half because they're only there half a day?
They
Or do
don't
they count them
at
as a
all.
full?
they're not counting.
Okay, so what I did was on Northwood, they currently have 108 UPK students, 54 in the AM, 54 in the PM. If you add 54 into the 432 figure, it gives you 486, which means you're using 61.8% of the building. If you put the full 108 into the figure, it gives you 540 kids, which gives you 68.6% building utilization. So that's on the one I just sent out. So that UPK, so it shows you what it actually gives you a true picture of what they're actually utilizing, because there's more than 432 kids in Northwood's building.
You couldn't really count them as full in the way that you're counting them, because they're using the same space. So they're not, as far as building capacity, they're not using 108 of them are not using all that space, because half of them are using it and then they're going home and the other half are using it.
Okay, so then I'll use it as the 54.
Yeah, so if you're going to include them, I would do it by half.
Sorry, we'll take out the 108.
Okay. All right. Okay. Impact on the district. Shifts attendance zones using Union Road as the east-west boundary. Enrollment would even out at middle schools and high schools. Number 2, option for high school students to remain at current school for 3 years. Decision would need to be made regarding transportation for students that elect to stay at current school. Middle school students would move to proper high school. Priority is for the elementary students to attend the closest school to their house that feeds the proper middle high school. Would like the same educational opportunities and values for the east and west students. Save money on school operating costs. District offices moved out of West Elementary. By increasing building utilization, provides opportunity to build an addition to West Middle to accommodate more students and apply for state aid. Possible location for district offices. Possible to rent space to BOCES. These. Oh, and there's a number 11, I'm sorry. Changes Allendale to an east feeding school to help students attend the closest elementary school to their house. So basically, it's the same proposal, just using a different elementary school at each point. The reason that this subcommittee, and correct me gentlemen if I'm wrong, the reason that this subcommittee chose to do that was we got a lot of feedback. Why are you only looking at closing Potters Road and Winchester? So they went through and did a scenario closing every elementary school so everyone had equal access. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Why would you want to close Northwood Elementary? It's one of the newer schools.
Well, we have to look at every possibility to decide which ones are good and which ones are bad.
We're not making that decision.
Yeah.
Right. We're just putting the facts to the board. So it's got all the school facts there.
So all this is going to go to the board.
Well, that's what we have to make sure that we're okay. That's a great question, Joan. If we're saying that all of those are going, or if we're just picking the top 3 or 4 or 5. Okay.
I personally see a value in showing that we treated every school equally as far as being impacted. You know, obviously the Board of Education is going to look at things through their own eyes, and God bless them. But we were fair to the community.
Number 1, I thought with your Northwood Elementary proposal that the kids that were affected in the change were not affected in this proposal.
When you close Northwood, they are, because you have Allendale. So some of those kids that were in the middle part that went to East L now would go to Allendale versus going to Clinton Street.
Okay, so it's more
the Northwood Clinton kids are taking over part of Clinton, so that means you got to move some of those other kids down.
Got it.
Okay. Close Allendale and shift attendance zones. Enrollment 399, building capacity 697, building utilization 57.2%, grades K to 5, number of classrooms 31, acreage 53 with West Elementary, 1 campus, no pool, Title I school, no, special education district classes, no, age of the building, 61 years, square feet 77,900, age of the roof 30 plus years, needs replacement. I get nervous about that. I know everybody knows I get nervous about that roof. Window status replaced in 2005. Additions in 2005, 6 classrooms with bathrooms. If you remember, we saw that addition when we went on our walkthrough. It was at the one end of the building. Heating and cooling system, hot water, auditorium, yes. Character education program, Leader in Me. East Elementary Schools, with this proposal, would be Clinton and Northwood. West Elementary Schools would be Potter Road, West Elementary, and Winchester. Advantages: low capacity. East Elementary students stay at Clinton, so they wouldn't be shifted again. Roof needs to be replaced. Not Title I, so no issue moving equipment. Could keep property with West Elementary. Could be sellable or leasable. Disadvantages: some Clinton students would change to Northwood, but not the East Elementary students that just changed schools. Parking issue at Clinton, Potters Road, and Winchester Elementary. Space to add additional parking at these schools. No East Feeding Elementary School in the south of West Seneca. On a campus with children, so need to be careful of what goes into the building. Impact on district: shift attendance zones using Union Road as the east-west boundary. Enrollment would even out at middle schools and high schools. Option for high school students to remain at current school. Decision would need to be made regarding transportation for students that elect to stay at the current school. Middle school students would move to proper high school. Priority is for elementary students to attend the closest school to their house that feeds the proper middle and high school. Would like the same educational opportunities and values for East and West students. Save money on school operating costs. District moves out of West Elementary. By increasing building utilization, provides opportunity to build an addition to West Elementary to accommodate more, West Middle, to accommodate more students and apply for state aid. Possible location for district offices. Possible to rent space for BOCES. Questions?
Do you know if BOCES wants to ever rent space? Is that just something we thought of? Or
BOCES rents a classroom
Really?
at Potter Road Elementary
Okay.
School.
Lisa?
Yes.
How many Promethean boards does this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, Allendale. 28.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Oh,
Do you guys, with what we said before about the high school, so what I would do on that is option for high school students to remain at current school for currently enrolled high school students. So that way there, whatever time that they do it, it'll be for whoever are the currently enrolled high school students.
Yep.
We have the possible location for district offices. Do we want to put in approximate 20% savings to move offices to
current school building.
or to school building versus Ebenezer?
Yeah, I think the board needs to have that piece of information. Savings up to 20%, maybe we want to put. That might be, since we don't know,
That could,
you know.
couldn't that be included with Joe's packet with the maps?
Yeah, we
that
could
would
put,
take-
we
that
could
applies
put a
across the board,
cover,
right?
we can put, I can put together a cover letter that goes on this, there's gonna be a whole, they're getting a binder. They're gonna have a little reading to do.
I have a question. Okay, could be sellable or leasable. Okay, I don't know, being that it's part of the same campus, but in this, and then as a disadvantage, you've got it on the same campus with children, so if you were to sell it, God only knows what you would have in the front, so I don't know that that's
Well, yeah,
really
but
a
Allendale
concern.
is farther away from West L than Winchester is from any other building. You know what I mean? Like, as far as, there's quite a buffer.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, but
Really?
it's on a disadvantage that it's on the same campus with children, so you need to be careful what goes in there.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
So, I guess if you would
It's
sell
really
it.
not that far away. I mean, if there's Allendale gym classes out in the back of Allendale, and there's Westell gym
They're
classes out in
together.
front of
They're
Westell,
actually
you
together.
have to be careful that they're not together. Like,
Right.
it's really not as far as you think.
Right.
Not that we don't want them together.
No, you know what, no, you know what I'm saying, like, you're, you know, you're.
If it were to be sold.
You know,
it would be
our
sold.
gym classes tend to go in the front, they tend to go in the back, and they're close.
They
Some
are
of the
very
kids
close.
like
They're
the
right on top
game
of
that
each
they're
other.
being played by the other school.
Yeah.
What you got?
We can hear the
Well,
announcements
Bob had
at the end
talked
of the day at
about,
Westell.
you had talked about like
Yeah,
senior
yeah.
housing or medical offices would be a fit for that type of
Well,
building.
I think it's on a, a single small or a single-story building. There could be possible usage of different size space. It's on a kind of significant road.
There's a lot of parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the kids that, like, say Winchester are playing 5 feet from random people's backyards. So, you know.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is a concern, but it's also, I mean, most schools have properties right there. So, I mean, at least
I wasn't sure where you were going.
Oh, I don't know what they were going with. I'm just throwing out my opinion.
Why are we keeping number 8 into all the proposals when we know we can't do it for 5 years?
Because the initial thought that people are going to have is if you're doing all this redistricting or shifting attendance zones to fit people in West Middle, why don't you just build an addition on West Middle?
But you won't be able to do it for a long time.
But it
Yeah,
allows
but
us
you
to be able
also
to do
can't
it.
do it at all if you don't increase the building utilization. You can't do it ever.
The district won't approve us. From what if I'm getting this right, Joe, the district, currently, if we went to the state and said, we'd like to put an addition on West Middle because we want our 5th grade there, the state would say, no, we're not giving you that aid because your buildings aren't at appropriate utilization at a capacity.
Right.
Am I right in that? I just want to make sure. So I think that's the thing, Joan, is so we need to get our numbers equalized in order to, if they ever chose to do that, the numbers would need to equalize out in the current buildings that we have to give us that option.
Right.
Am I right on
So I'm
that?
just trying to answer the question of somebody saying, well, if you're doing all this stuff here to put an addition on the West Middle, why don't you just put in it, or you want to fit more kids in West Middle, why don't you put an addition on it? And this is telling them that you can't do that unless you take other steps.
Would it have to go to a referendum? For
Yes.
people to vote? They won't vote for it.
Well, yeah, but you can't.
It would have to be a bond, just like
Yeah, I know.
the last bond issue that we did.
I know.
And they,
Taxes going up in West Seneca, believe me. You should hear the people, so.
So, but I think it's important to have it as an impact to answer the question, Brian. I think you're right on that.
The only other thing that's not on this, that it's on the one that I emailed earlier, is for every one where I do East Elementary and West Elementary, I tell you what the total classrooms and capacity is
Okay.
based on that. So that's added at each one of those ones on the new one.
All right, proposal 5, close West Elementary and shift attendance zones. 612 students, building capacity 1,012, building utilization 60.5, grades K to 5. Number of classrooms 45, acreage 53 with Allendale Elementary. Pool, yes. Title I school, no. Special education district classes, no. Number of pre-theme boards and smart boards 37. UPK, no. Age of building 41 years old. Square feet 126,500. Age of roof 29 years. Window status replaced in 2004. Additions in 2004. That was the gym area. Addition to the gym and classrooms going that way. And downstairs. Heating, cooling systems, hot water, auditorium, no. Stage and bleachers in gym. Leader and Me program, no. But they do a character ed program. Wildcat Way. Okay. West Elementary Schools, Clinton, the East Elementary Schools would become Clinton in Northwood. A total of 67 classrooms for a capacity of 1,507 students. The West Elementary Schools would be Allendale, Potter Road, and Winchester. Total classrooms of 85 with a capacity of 1,912 students.
Yeah, that was on the other ones. I don't know why it's not on. Like, it's on these last proposals, but the other ones are, so.
Okay,
But that's
sorry.
what's on the other ones
Okay.
before, so everyone
Alright.
kind of knows what I was just talking about.
Advantages: can send students on west side to their closest school, most expensive school to operate. would get remaining schools closer to 80%. Possible middle school with grades 5 and 6 on one floor and grades 7 and 8 on the other. Cost to transform school. Approximate cost to transform the West L into a middle school. Do we have a number? Rough? No?
More than $1.
I mean, that's a pretty significant number. We talked about that it would have to be outfitted with labs. It would have to be outfitted with home and careers. So it was a...
Is it even ballparkable?
It's only ballparkable just because of the capacity. That's the only reason why we thought of it.
Right.
No. Is there ever the ability to come? I mean, are we talking millions?
No.
Hundreds? Like, I mean, you know, what I'm saying is, though, if we're looking at, it's cheaper to keep the district offices there because it might cost $100,000. Are we talking in the same realm, or are we talking like well closer to the $1 million mark?
I honestly don't know what
Okay.
we needed in a middle school, to
Okay.
be honest with you, for classroom.
I'm assuming it's very hard to ballpark that sort of thing. Then.
Yes.
But it used to be a middle school, right? That takes
Yes.
And if you
A lot of
remember,
stuff
it doesn't
was
have an
taken out, a lot of
auditorium.
stuff
We
was
talked
changed.
about that, and it doesn't have fields.
Right. Exactly.
We talked about that. And the bathrooms would have to be redone. Number 5, not Title I, so no issues moving equipment. Only elementary school in the district without bathrooms in the primary classes, K-2. District offices do not have to move. Possible location for community education. Roof will need to be replaced soon. Possible to make West Middle Campus with grades 5 and 6 in Allendale and grades 7 and 8 in West Elementary. Disadvantages. Largest capacity elementary school. Highest enrollment among elementary schools. Parking issue at Clinton, Potters Road, and Winchester Elementary. Space to add additional parking at these schools. Community education uses building, especially the pool. Large parking lot. No east feeding elementary school in the south of West Seneca. Impact on the district. Shift attendance zone.
Lisa, can we add in there that there's no odd?
That's
Again,
for
as a disadvantage? Yeah.
It's up there. Oh, it is up on the top.
Yeah.
Whether or not we have auditoriums around all of them.
Right. I mean, that's a major disadvantage why we disqualified that count at the beginning. Would it be okay?
From a middle school
Right,
is why we
Yeah.
said it wouldn't work for a
Okay.
middle school.
Okay, just asking.
No, you're right. I'm just saying that's why.
Well, because it's listed as an advantage, the disadvantage would be the fact that all those things would need to be either added, or we would have to increase
No, I think
transportation
this is-
costs to shuttle
This is
kids.
to close it. So why would, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. Impact on district. Shift attendance zone using Union Road as the east-west boundary. Enrollment would even out at middle schools and high schools. Option for high school students to remain at current school if they've already begun there. Decision would need to be made regarding transportation for students that elect to stay at current school. Middle school students would move to proper high school. Priority is for the elementary students to attend the closest school to their house that feeds the proper middle high school. Would like the same educational opportunities and values for East and West students. Save money on the school operating costs. District offices moved out of West Elementary.
That would change the district offices do not have to move because we're
Right.
closing it. so-
Okay. Got it. By increasing building utilization, provides opportunity to build in addition to West Middle, to accommodate more students and apply for state aid. Possible location for district offices. Possible to rent space to BOCES. District offices can stay in location. Possible other uses within the district for the building. Questions?
Other use would be, I could say there too, right? The,
Because we put the West Middle campus, so that's what the reason why we put possible other uses within the district was if you decided to turn into a middle school within the district, that was the other use. That's why we put it as potential impact.
Right.
Because we said that.
Okay.
That's the reason why it's there versus the other one, because we didn't identify any other schools as a.
But if West L were to close, adult ed wouldn't have to leave, or community ed wouldn't have to leave, right?
Community is not at.
You got that in there about 100 times.
All they do is use the
That's it? My wife comes here for, and my kids come here for stuff.
They may come for classes
Yeah.
once in a while, but the actual offices are over at East Middle.
No, I'm referring to the classes and stuff, that it still could be used, even if it's not an elementary school.
Right.
In fact, they could offer adult ed during the day, or community ed, I keep calling it.
Brian, did you write most of this, or?
Yes.
Okay, so for number 10 under advantages, can you just, is there a typo, or am I not reading that correctly? Number 10, advantages for closing West L. So the way I'm reading it, it says...
It's because they're putting two in one building and two in the other building. Somebody brought that up as, because with putting 5 and 6 and 7, 8 in the entire school, West L only holds 1,012 kids, West Middle holds 1,035 kids. So by turning West L into a middle school, you're actually losing 23 kids. So the only way, if you didn't want to, if you wanted to create a middle school and not have to do any sort of redrawing of attendance zones, that was one of the things we said. Well, if you turn Allendale into a 5-6 and then use West L as 7-8, now you've just taken the enrollment capacity to 17, a little over 1,809 students. So now you have enough between the two buildings that you could theoretically fit everybody between the two. So that was the only reason why we came up with that, was if you didn't want to rezone, you would obviously have to, if that one there, you'd have to obviously put the kids from Allendale in another spot to do that. But that was one of the things of saying, we'll turn this into a West campus.
Could that be an additional proposal then? You know, because then you're...
You'd essentially be closing West Middle, and
Because essentially, because you add this part where you're closing Allendale, so now you have to explain where you're putting the Allendale students as well.
Well, again, I think if I'm reading it wrong, he's saying close West L, and then potentially you could look at doing more stuff. So by closing West L, it changed, you know, like, I don't think he's
But
recommending.
I see what you're saying is a
proposal.
whole new, different
Because one of the other pieces of that is one of the concerns that have come up is that at East Middle, there's the opportunity to separate 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th graders into separate hallways. You don't have that with only 3 wings at West Middle. That's where that came from.
Yeah.
To say, if you used both of those spaces, you would be able to separate the 5th and 6th and the 7th and 8th a little more, because that was just one of the concerns that someone brought up that was trying to be addressed.
Yeah, that might be like a whole nother proposal.
So the reason why we didn't put it as a whole nother proposal was because because
part of it is because the
there's
money
been so much
piece,
time spent on these
right.
14 proposals. To go ahead and take this proposal is going to take another probably 4 or 5 hours to dissect that one to figure out if to do that. So we figured we'd put it as an option. If the board turns around and says, hey, that's an option, what would it look like to do it, then we would do it. If the board says that's a dumb idea, then I don't want to waste 5-6 hours going through it. So this is a potential use for it. If it's something that you like, we can explore it further. If it's something you say is the dumbest idea in the world, then great. I didn't spend any more time than writing it on a sheet of paper. So that was the point to that. Rather than create the whole other proposal off it, I wanted to see how viable they thought of an option it was.
So Brian, I think what I'm struggling with a little bit is that it's listed as an advantage, because, and I understand why it's listed as an advantage, because you could reuse the West Elementary campus for something else, right? But to say to reuse the West Elementary campus for these things, then there are so many more disadvantages to that we're not listing.
Yeah, that would be a whole nother proposal at that point if
Right.
they thought it was interesting.
Maybe just take 10 off of there.
Yeah, so I guess that's,
we can take it off.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, and one of the disadvantages would be we're closing the elementary school potentially to use it for something else, to repurpose it, but to repurpose it as another school would increase labor costs, right? So, the whole goal is to
Well,
decrease labor costs.
Then you don't need West Middle.
Well, I guess I would need clarification.
Well, at that point, if you turn that into West Middle, then West Middle's the mothball building.
Right. So I think that's why this is confusing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we think we want to take 10 off? Okay.
Done.
All right. Okay. All right. Any other questions on proposal 5? Okay. I'm going to try to like move this along. So, all right. School facts. Read them. This is close Potter Road and shift attendance zone. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like, no. Perithium boards are 26. Okay. East elementary schools would be Clinton and Northwood. West elementary schools would be Allendale, West Elementary, and Winchester. Advantages: low capacity, can send students on west side to their closest schools, neighborhood pockets so it is easier to split up the students, logical division to send neighborhoods to closest elementary school, could be fallible, may be attractive to BOCES to rent space. Disadvantages: centrally located, parking issues at Clinton and Winchester, space to add additional parking at these schools, new playground, no east feeding elementary schools in the south of West Seneca, Title I, so possible issues moving equipment, new windows, may be able to move to Clinton.
And the windows that go to Clinton?
They could. We talked about that when we went on our little
It's the same exact building.
jaunt, I think.
But didn't we just say that?
No, Jim, you said that
Yeah,
you
you
thought
just
the
said
windows
the
were done in 2005.
Yeah,
The
I
thing
have
that we,
written
Yeah,
down.
originally it was 1990, that's why it was put in.
Okay, so that's,
so is it 2000, we know it's 2005?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, so that's,
To do that then.
So then I need to add that to Clinton's.
Shift on the district, impact on the district, sorry. Shift attendance zone using Union Road as the east-west boundary. Enrollment would even out at middle schools and high schools. Option for high school students to remain at current school. Decision would need to be made regarding transportation for students that elect to stay at high school. That's the 3-year thing. Middle school students would move to proper high school. Priority for elementary school students to attend the closest school to their house that feeds the proper middle high school. Would like the same educational opportunities and values for East and West students. Save money on school operating costs. District offices would move out of West Elementary by increasing building utilization. Provide opportunity to build an addition to West Middle to accommodate more students and apply for state aid down the road. Possible location for district offices may be more attractive to BOCES to rent space because it is next to the career and technical school. Okay. Questions?
Caleb, you want to go to buy Potter Road School?
He says no.
Well, even if he says no, even if he wants to buy it, we owe way more than what anyone is going to pay for that building anytime soon. So, well, but what would you say if you wanted to buy it?
It's not on the table,
Yeah.
Joan. That's what we've been told. That it's not even in a talk or anything. It's not even.
Property in Slade Avenue.
Right, but we owe so much on the building. Like hypothetically, I think we say we owe 13 million, and we could maybe sell it for 2. So we would have to pay the other 10 million back.
All right. Any other questions?
And that's hypothetical. I don't know the numbers.
Okay. All right. Close Potter Road Elementary. This is the same one I just did.
No, it's option 2.
Option 2, sorry. Okay. So all of the school facts are the same.
The only thing that changes is Allendale's an east feeding school in
Yep.
option 2.
Yep. So Allendale becomes an east feeding school. Clinton and Northwood are east feeding schools. West Elementary and Winchester are the west feeding schools. Low capacity. So the advantages are the same. The disadvantages are the same. The impact on the district is the same.
Well, the only thing it does is advantages-wise, it gives you keep schools in the north and south of West Seneca for the east and west. Whereas on
Gotcha.
option 1, it just keeps, east only has 2 schools in the north part and nothing in the south. So that's the only other advantage you get with option 2.
But it's
And then
gonna
it
lead to
removes
too
the
many
no.
students for the middle and high school on the east side.
Well, Allendale shifts.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it'd be the same for middle of high school.
Yeah, if you,
Allendale, when I was in school, Allendale was an East Speeding school.
Part of it was.
Hey,
That's when it was, that's when West Elementary was a middle school, right?
Bob, keep one thing in mind. On all of these, we have shifting the attendance zone. So on all of these, Union Road is used as the dividing line between middle and between east and west. And Kevin Love said that would
Yes.
make it work. So
I just drawn to the East Elementary schools would be 2204.
with the capacity.
Yeah. And East, Middle, and High couldn't accommodate those numbers.
Right.
that's the capacity, that's not how many kids are.
Right.
Right.
This sheet has the amount of
Okay.
kids.
Okay.
So if you look at it with this, if you look at that configuration, you've got 1,244 on the west side of town and 1,080 on the east side of town.
Okay, so we're good. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on proposal 7? Proposal 8. Close Winchester Elementary School and shift attendance zones, option 1. Enrollment 291, building capacity 495, building utilization 58.8%, grades K to 5. The the boards getting late. Let's see, are 19.
What's the character education at West Elm?
Okay, so that's East Elementary Schools would be Clinton Street and Northwood. West Elementary Schools would be Allendale, Potters Road, and West Elementary. Advantages: low capacity, can fit all of Winchester students into Potters Road. Least amount of students to move. Students located on west side of town stay in the west track. Oshai Foundation identified a need for youth community center in northwest section of West Seneca.
Let me clarify that.
Yep,
There's
thanks, Bob.
There's a meeting been going on, much like our meetings, where it's the Oshai Foundation and Erie County representatives are looking at, now West Seneca, they've done Cheektowaga, they've done some other communities, looking for the community needs in West Seneca. And they discussed the need for a youth community center in the west side of town, and so that could fit that. If the town wanted to pay rent and staff it, I guess.
And pay for it. They want money.
Well, pay rent.
They want some seed money though. I know that.
Okay.
That.
Disadvantages: Lighthouse School that draws national visitors, good recognition for the school district, parking issues at Clinton and Potter Road Elementary, space to add additional parking at these schools, no East Speeding Elementary School in the south of West Seneca, no West Speeding Elementary School in the north of West Seneca, Title I, so possible issues moving equipment, shift attendance zone, impact on district. Shift attendance zones using Union Road as the east-west boundary. Enrollment would even out at middle schools and high schools. Option for high school students to remain at current school for 3 years. Middle school students would move to proper high school. Priority is for elementary students to attend the closest school to their house that feeds the proper middle high school. Would like the same educational opportunities and values for the east and west students. Save money on school operating costs. District office moves out of West Elementary by increasing building utilization. So 8 stays the same, 9 stays the same, 10 stays the same, 11 possible to turn into a youth center and rent to the town of West Seneca. Anything else that anybody would like to add or clarification on anything? Yes, no.
Now, Lighthouse School is just within the Leader in Me, so when I do that one there, it should say Character Education Program for Winchester's Leader in Me, right?
Correct.
So that is the same.
Yep, and that'd be the same for Potters Road.
Yep.
It'd be the same for Allendale. Yep. Yep. Okay, proposal 9. Close Winchester and shift attendance zones, option 2. The East Elementary Schools become Allendale, Clinton, and Northwood. The West Elementary Schools become Potters and West Elementary. Advantage 1 stays the same. Advantage 2 stays the same. Number 3, least amount of students to move. Number 4 stays the same. Number 5 stays the same. Disadvantages, 1 stays the same. 2 stays the same. 3
You just lose the no East feeding school in the south. That's the only disadvantage you lose.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, and then we can move on. Any other questions on the closing Winchester?
And then the only add additional impact is Allendale becomes East feeding. That's the only.
Okay. All right. We're getting there. 10. Universal pre-K in every elementary building. Advantages, students may attend the same elementary school they will attend. Easy drop-off and pickup. Disadvantages, if elementary school that they would attend is full, students will need another school. Teachers are not able to plan with other pre-K teachers. Spreads enrollment out so it doesn't have a big impact on building utilization. If full daycare is needed, no way to transport students to another facility. Impact on district, not mandated. Uses space in elementary buildings. Total UPK students in the district, 216. Students per classroom, 18. And then it'll go by and it'll show you by adding in our little friends.
And I'll take out the 36 because I know to only do the 18.
Yep.
So
we'll take out that far right column.
I didn't know if you wanted to show them. So
I have another impact on the district as well as a disadvantage because there's not enough clerical staff to accommodate comings and goings of pre-Ks at every building. The buildings that now have the pre-Ks have an additional part-time clerk that helps with that transition of those parents coming and going. So, and then we've already been told there will be no more staff hired.
So there's only 2 now, and we would have to add 3 more.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 more.
We're closing.
Well, it's.
Well, that you don't know that yet.
Oh, okay. So this is okay. I get it. Yeah. So we up to up to 4
yes,
more.
Right. I just know that's
That's
big.
good information.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's important.
We wouldn't have known that.
Okay. Anything else on pre-K in every building?
So I'll put that as a disadvantage and an impact on district.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Alrighty. Universal pre-K in West Elementary. Advantages. Separate entrance that can be used for UPK with its own parking lot. Large parking lot to help with drop-off and pickup. Teachers are together, makes planning easier. Increases building utilization. Primary classrooms are large. Human resource area could be renovated into a gathering area for drop-off and pickup. Gathering area would provide an additional layer of safety to check in students without access to the school. Disadvantages. School is not centrally located. Drop-off and pickup disrupts building. If full daycare is needed, no way to transport students to another facility. Impact on district, not mandated. Increase building utilization significantly. Not centrally located. Disrupts school with drop-off and pickup. Gathering area for drop-off and pickup. May need to stagger start and end times to help with drop-off and pickup. And then there's the enrollment piece.
Could this universal pre-K apply to any building though, not just West L? That was the mothballed.
If you were to mothball the building, yes.
This
Okay.
is putting it in without mothballing.
Right, yeah,
this
no, I
is-
just.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this
it's
is
kind
just
of the
adding
same-
it with the
it's the
current
same-
students. in
Same
there.
concept.
The maps, each one has a possibility of having pre-K in it.
Correct. Yeah. This was one that we had talked about prior to getting this packet, but yes.
So in essence, we could, whatever building, if the Board of Education chose to use one of the buildings for administrative offices, thanks to Joe's color-coded work here, we could make any of one wing or floor could be pre-K, rental, whatever else.
Mhm.
And that would, and Kathy and I were just talking about it, as far as resources of staff, having UPK in one building would be a major benefit. Because now, when you have them spread out, you just need more staff. And you can't share resources if one has to help the other, or if one is out. It becomes a major difference than if they're in the same building.
But if it was in West Elementary as an elementary school, then you already have a building administrator, a nurse, secretarial staff. If you put it in a mothballed building, then don't you need to staff an office, have a nurse? Wouldn't you need all of those things? So it really wouldn't be a mothballed building. Would we save on?
I think we would need to, I think some of your concerns are really accurate. I mean, obviously, administration doesn't have a nurse, I don't believe. Sometimes you may need a nurse, but you know.
But I don't believe any of the other pre-K programs in the area either have a nurse.
No.
Page 1 doesn't have a nurse.
Okay.
I'm not
I
sure
wasn't
about
sure.
EduKids, but I'm pretty sure Page 1 doesn't have a nurse on staff.
Well, that's something we can more look at when we start looking at
I don't know
building
if it's a
usage
requirement,
too.
Brian.
What they did in Northwood is they put all the children that have diabetes or whatever their special needs are in one classroom, and in that classroom there is a teacher or aide that's responsible and knows how to do all that, like first aid things. So even though there isn't a nurse at Northwood, they have
Oh,
somebody
wow.
right in the classroom. that
Really?
takes care of that, yeah.
That's great.
Brian, what's the full capacity of UPK? Is this it, that 216? Is
Yep.
that? Okay.
Yep. I just, the one
240,
thing,
because you got the 10%.
the one thing I'm just, and I apologize, I'm just a little confused about and I appreciate there's a lot of work here, and well done. But was this the charge of your subcommittee to do proposals about universal pre-K? I mean, was that one of the things that the commission said, you know, look at all of these proposals for UPK?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ed did. Ed tasked me to do it.
Okay. So I remember at the meeting, when we originally talked about 3 subcommittees, this wasn't part of the charge. That's all. So I'm just
There was
curious.
some conversations in the room about it, and we thought it's.
Well, there was
worthwhile looking
UPK
at.
in the proposals. Like, parts of the proposals had pieces of UPK in them. And then when we talked about the various proposals, it was brought up about UPK in every building, UPK in one building. So that's kind of how, there were pieces within the proposal that dealt with UPK. So that's why we broke it out as a separate proposal, because
And just to
That's
our
go along with
proposal.
Brian, I think it also came on with building usage. What would we use a building for? What would you use the additional space for? And that was a natural kind of bridge into there, because you know, when you get into some of the other ones, as you move district offices out of one area, you can start to consider, well, what would you use the space for? And I think that was a natural kind of next step. And so while it may not have been the original charge, I think as the space cleared up, we could say, well, what could we do with it? And I think that was kind of a fit, and that's probably where this was all born out of.
I thought it was just mentioned like Winchester at the time, but not anything.
Well, in the proposals with the Eric subcommittee was working on, there was some pre-K that was part of that proposal. That was an original
Right.
section of one of those proposals. Okay, proposal 12, universal pre-K in Northwood Elementary.
So, Joe, how do you want me to put the advantage with having it in one building? Major, you said major advantage from staffing?
No,
But-
I just was, from looking at this, it seemed to me, and I kind of was thinking along the same lines as Brian. I looked at it as the universal pre-K, and I understand what Rick said, as part of putting it together. Pretty much every building would have the opportunity for having, you know, the pre-K or and rental space in it. And I think by having it in one building, and you brought up some good points over there too, but in one building, the sharing of resources, from staff, CSEA staff and teaching staff, I think there's an advantage there.
And I think too, we would need to check, and this isn't our charge at the moment, but to check what the grant, like, do we need to have an administrator there? Do we need to have, I mean, does somebody actually have to be on site? Do we have to have a nurse? Like, those kinds of things. That would need to be, you know, we didn't, none of us on either subcommittee got into it, quite delve that deep into it. So, you know, something to keep looking at.
Another thing that with the UPK in one location, there may, in a far-fetched thought, be the possibility of a private enterprise daycare located in there. Would be an easy shift for families.
Especially because UPK is
right.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we came up with the two buildings, it was nothing more than looking at how much space is in the buildings that are there. And Northwood and West L had the most space that could accommodate the kids. So it wasn't the fact that, you know, with, Joe mentioned that he was going to put together what could we do with the buildings and things like that. This started before that. So it was, well, if you're gonna, now you got this extra space, what could you do with it to help get that utilization up? So that's the reason why those two schools were picked, is because they had enough open space to fit it, and they had the parking lots, and it seemed like they had reasonable accommodations at the schools that wouldn't take a huge disruption to do it if you were to put it in either one of those schools. So.
And West in particular kind of gets it closer to that 80%, bumps it over 70. So it kind of fit with the capacity issue that Joe was talking about.
Okay, universal pre-K in Northwood Elementary. Advantages: separate entrance that can be used for UPK. Large parking lot to help with drop-off and pickup. Teachers are together, makes planning easier. Number 4 stays the same. Disadvantages 1, 2, and 3 are the same. Impact on the district, not mandated, stays the same. 2, 3, and 4 stays the same. What it would do is it would boost the enrollment and building capacity at Northwood. Okay. Universal pre-K to outside facilities. Advantages: frees classroom space, no disruption to schools with drop-off and pickup. If full day care is needed, student is at a facility that can provide it. Disadvantages: students would be spread out among varying facilities. Not a huge budget impact. UPK costs the district $350,000 above the grant received. So it's 0.3%. Cost could still exceed grant. Less control of the program. UPK teachers may not have the same qualification as West Seneca teachers. Teachers are not evaluated by the district. Facilities could be very different from a school setting. Teachers do not have the same support and development opportunities as West Seneca teachers. Impact on the district, not mandated. Save money on personnel and supplies. Costs could still exceed grant. Students would be spread out among various facilities. No disruption to schools with drop-off and pickup. Minimal program oversight by district. Questions, concerns?
I would add a number 9, that there's a possibility for students to be less prepared for kindergarten. There is research that does show, and I'm trying to identify some recent pieces of it that show that UPK prepares students better for kindergarten if it's done within a school.
UPK is the new kindergarten, really.
Well, I mean, yeah, when you look at, and I mean, we could even, you know, one of the hard things is that you could probably even look at kindergarten screening results, and I've talked to a few people within the district, and they say that yes, there's a distinct difference for those who've done UPK versus those who have not, and those who've done UPK at an elementary school and those that have not. So, you know, students who do UPK in this environment are more prepared for school, and that's, academically speaking, that's extremely important, I think.
Right.
Foundation is everything.
Again, it would equate back to like when we went to school, we went to kindergarten.
Right.
And that prepared us for first grade. Same kind of concept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if I went to kindergarten at like some other building that wasn't a school, that would be like daycare.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I just got a couple comments here. Last week, my wife went to that subcommittee meeting and presented the proposal for the UPK to an outside source. I don't think it's any secret, but the work was done by Dr. Lauren Nicholas. She's a school board member. She was actually tasked by Mary Busey to do the work. And many of these disadvantages, if you just read her report, these disadvantages simply aren't true. And this would include maybe Eric's number 9. The curriculum is exactly the same for the outside sources in New York State. It's mandated by New York State. They have the exact same curriculum. So when you look at these disadvantages, you would look at 4 through 8, whether it's less control of program. Actually, in New York State, the district can take as much control of the program as they want. Williamsville has a very high level of control compared to us. Number 5, UPK teachers may not have the same qualifications as West Seneca teachers. Again, the qualifications are actually mandated by the state. This is right in the rules, that they actually have to have a certified teacher, New York State certified teacher with a master's degree working. Now, yes, they do have aides, just like we have aides that are less qualified, but they do have to have a New York State certified teacher with a master's degree. So that would take care of number 5. Number 6, teachers not evaluated by a district. Well, the district can opt to evaluate those teachers at the private providers. Because West Seneca doesn't, we shouldn't list that as a disadvantage, because we could do that and evaluate them. We just don't. So it's really not the fault of the provider.
Guy, I have a question about that.
Okay.
If the district chooses to, and you might not know the answer, but if they choose to evaluate the teachers, what would happen if a teacher received a low evaluation?
What control would they have?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what control they would have. It would be nice to find out.
I don't think they would have any.
Just not to interrupt, but I think to change that disadvantage would be, does the school district have the resources as a disadvantage to evaluate if the entire program was farmed out? It would be that would be an important distinction. That does the district have the resources as a disadvantage?
Now you have to
I would alter that.
Because now you have to send administrators out to the.
And especially with the nonsense things that they have going on, that they have to evaluate teachers, all the, most of your time is spent evaluating in the building, and you can't get that done. And how are you going to expect to go out and then with so many different things? So I would list that as a disadvantage, but I agree with your point that to alter that.
Okay. I would also have to say though, is if you do something like that, you're talking about teachers and other staff losing their jobs, and district will not be paying unemployment for all of those people.
They wouldn't lose their jobs though. They would be, because they're not.
Those
we
positions.
Would still. Yeah. So there's not really.
It's not. But what Kathy's saying is those positions.
Yeah.
So if you have 12
teachers teaching,
or 6 teachers teaching, 6 classrooms, 6 teachers, and then if there's aides or whatever, those positions. It doesn't mean that particular person.
Right, but so it wouldn't be really that much of a cost savings because they wouldn't be losing their job. It would be the newest people.
Right, but you're still going to be paying unemployment.
Right. But I'm saying though,
you have to think about that as well. That's also a cost.
Right. Yeah, it's not a savings, is what I'm saying. There's not a major savings.
Exactly.
And one of the reasons. Back at the top 3, what those advantages are. Is that I don't understand what advantage we gain by doing it. Freeze classroom space. Every proposal does that. No disruption to schools to drop off and pick up. And if full daycare is needed, students at a facility that can provide it. I don't see any advantages of.
Okay, I can answer that. Number 3, full daycare is provided. Actually the number is 72%. 72% of the kids that do UPK in West Seneca do need daycare after they end their UPK. So that if they're at a West Seneca facility, we don't provide daycare, so they have to go somewhere else. So the parent or someone else has to come pick them up and take them to the daycare provider that they're going to. Where if they go to an outside facility, 100% of those outside facilities have daycare right there.
I think this might be.
72% of those kids have to go to
72%.
Where did that number come from? Wow, I'd like
Dr. Lauren Nicholas.
Where did she get that
number from? Because
But wait, isn't
I
she
find
on
that
the
really hard to
board?
believe.
Why
I
is she
was just there a year ago.
Okay.
I would have to say.
That's a really good one.
More than 50%.
I mean, I'm just saying, I understand, but I thought that was one of the issues, is we didn't want input from board members because we
Well,
wanted to.
she was actually tasked with this by.
Right, she was tasked by it, but
That's fine,
how
but it
did,
should- it
how
really
did
shouldn't
Corey
be
get
here.
it? How did, why did
She-
Corey get put to present
It's
it?
not to be here,
She
I
was
don't think.
told that she could
No,
share
it's
it
a
with us.
That's their own.
So Lauren gave it to Corey?
Yes, emailed it.
She shouldn't have. She shouldn't have been
It's no
involved
different
at
than
all.
Jan
She shouldn't
passing
have
out.
So we have a
Early
board
meetings
member
to us.
who is openly presenting to take our students and put them outside of our school district.
Right.
And I'm glad that that's on video.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I think it's, I mean, the proposal's there. I mean, we're exploring it. I appreciate the
And that's not
clarification
aimed
on
at
that.
you, that was nice of you to bring that, but it's outside this, what the task of this committee is, and for a board member who's representing the school district to talk about taking our students outside of our school district, I have to question motivation.
Well, the way I first heard it was there could be a financial advantage.
It doesn't, that's
But
not
it
what it
doesn't
says
play
here.
out that way on further review.
And Bob, there's a financial advantage not to offer music
Exactly.
or kindergarten,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think, you know,
No dispute.
that's why I did ask the question, you know, about the charge of these subcommittees, looking at universal pre-K. You know, if these proposals go forward, I understand there's positive and negatives to them. I just wasn't sure if that was the charge.
Well-
To take UPK separately and make proposals separately about universal pre-kindergarten.
But I do feel by doing that, we found out one of the reasons we wanted to separate it in each building was we thought like kids at Winchester who are going to be going to kindergarten at Winchester would go to pre-K. Now we found out that's pretty much not really feasible because we didn't know about administration being involved. So I think breaking it out did help. And we also realized, we can get pre-K into a mothball building and maybe rent the space out to private entities. So I don't think it hurt us
Well,
to do
I'll
it.
tell you that the first thing that, well, I'll tell you one of the reasons why it was brought up at my committee was the first things we talked about was closing Potter's Road, and there's 108 universal pre-K kids at Potter's Road. As I'm trying to figure out where the kids are going, those are part of the 108 kids that I'm figuring out where they're going. So that's why I branched off into other UPK things, was because I felt that if I didn't address those 108 kids, then we didn't do a complete task.
And that's fine. My issue is that there's a proposal in here to eliminate it.
Right, I
And
guess
that- I don't think that
proposal
was the-
10,
Not
proposal,
Not eliminated.
no, hang on,
Eliminated from
proposal
the
10,
district building.
proposal 11, and proposal 12 is looking to repurpose building space and utilize building space, which is what I think is where we came originally of, okay, now we have, let's take Northwood for example, is going to have a low student enrollment. What can we do to increase that enrollment and get that building capacity up? We could move pre-K over there. Proposal 13 isn't doing any of that. Proposal 13 is simply taking the children outside of the school district, is how I look at it.
Well, my hope with proposal 13 was to show that that wasn't a good option. Because I would think that people are going to say, if you're saying, here's one option to put in each school, here's another option to move it here, my thought is the next person's going to say, well, how about if you just get rid of it altogether? So my thought was, if we put it there, does it answer a question before it gets brought up?
Yeah, and I can see that.
But we can eliminate it, I don't care. I just, that was the only other thing, is those were the kind of playing through the options. It was, what is the next option? Is you completely take it out of the district.
I go back to, I think Brian brought up a very salient point. We could eliminate, from the first day, we said, what do we value? We could eliminate kindergarten, we could eliminate music, we could eliminate sports, we could eliminate the academies, we could eliminate all of those, and I, for one, would be very uncomfortable with giving an option to the school board that evidently is already in the school board, even though they weren't supposed to be a part of this, of eliminating something that we have. Because from day one, everybody at this committee talked about what do we value, and then let the school board make decisions on where they're gonna put the dollars and cents to. I feel very uncomfortable in any way saying that we're going to make a recommendation to somehow privatize and farm out students to say, well, you know what, to save a few dollars, which actually, if you look at the numbers, doesn't save any money. we're gonna take.
It actually saves
those
money.
kids. It actually doesn't.
It does not.
It absolutely
really
does
does.
not. It absolutely does not.
Lisa,
It absolutely
you
does not.
Yes,
Lies,
I
lies,
know
and damn
why.
statistics. It absolutely does not save money.
You're gonna spend that money later
Yeah.
on, having
It's-
to make up where the kids have not.
Can you explain how?
Well, I don't think that that's what this committee is for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to provide
Right.
many statistics at a later date, but none other of our proposals say to totally eliminate a program. And I've never once heard that that's what this was for. We looked at what we value, and if the school board wants to do something like that, then they can, but I don't think that this is the right forum for that. I think that I commend you and all the other people that gathered information, because this is an extremely comprehensive packet. But to have, I don't understand how we could sit here and say, let's eliminate something, because that's not what we're here for.
Lisa,
I agree
think
with
a-
you, Joan.
Joan?
I think a letter should be sent to the school board that we did not want this to be, the school board members to be involved in
Right.
this. I think that.
Well, that's why they stopped coming.
Pardon?
That's why they stopped coming.
Exactly, but I mean, I think a letter should come from this commission,
I would agree with that. So-
and that,
Yeah, and
I have
I
one
would,
question.
the
What are we
commission
afraid of?
members are not for it.
I'm wondering what we're afraid of.
well,
I don't think we're afraid of
It
anything.
seems like there's a real fear among school district employees over this UPK proposal.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm on the subcommittee, so I saw the specific data. First of all, it's at a sample of 100 students. We have 216 in our building, so even if 100 of them were our students, it wasn't a reflective sample of the parents of the students in our current program. So I don't even know where the sample of 100 came from. So from a statistical perspective, I can't even validate the 100 because I don't know 100 of what. Are they even representative of our current parents? Are they a complete representative sample? I mean, I know I didn't poll the parents in my school, and I have 108 of them. I know they weren't polled at Northwood, not by our committee. I wasn't asked to do that. I would have been more than happy to do something like that if we wanted to collect information. So I do have a concern about the validity of the information I'm getting. I also know, as someone who taught preschool, before I became a principal, someone who oversees my preschool teachers, I see the quality of the program, and I know that the cost of sending an administrator over to a program to observe teachers, to make sure that they're following the program. We all have the same curriculum from the state, but the implementation of that curriculum is different based on the experience of the teacher. So there's a difference. We can all hand the same curriculum out, but if you truly have the knowledge, which is why we have very experienced teachers in that program, because they truly understand the depth and the knowledge, where you have a lot of very young teachers who don't have the same background in the sites, right there is a complete difference. So we've strategically put teachers that are extremely experienced, who understand early learning and early understanding of how children need to be taught. But that's all been put in place. It's been very thoughtful. And the amount of time that I spend evaluating my teachers in the rooms, assessing what's going on, giving them staff development, I personally, I can say to you, it is not going to be the same if they're in the sites, because I'm living it every day. So I'm not afraid of anything, but I'm the one who lives it. And I'm the one who's in those pre-Ks every day. The board members are not. And I had a visit the other day, and the board members who came are not the ones who did the survey. So I'm not afraid. I'm a little bit offended, actually, that my teachers, my program, my students are being devalued when someone hasn't set foot in the classrooms to see what work they're doing. So that's my issue. It's not afraid of anything. It's I care about my kids. I want them to have the best opportunity. That's why we put the best teachers there. That's why we put all the resources in place that are there. I value that program. It's important to me. And I see it in action, and I see how important it is. And I was a teacher in a daycare of 3- and 4-year-olds when I first started my career. And I tell you right now, I couldn't give them what the teachers are giving them in my pre-Ks right now, because I didn't have the experience and the understanding. That takes time.
That's well said, Holly, and Guy, it's important for you to know, and again, we definitely appreciate the work that you're doing, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But what maybe you're not aware of is that we did have an administrator go out to other sites and evaluate the work that was going on. And the recommendation years ago was to bring the children back into the district to make it a stronger and more viable program. And we're very, very pleased with the work that our teachers are doing with our students. So I think, piggybacking on what Holly and many, Joe and Kathy and what everybody's saying, is that there is a sense that this is kind of slid in here. I don't believe that your committee was asked to look at closing or moving out pre-K by this commission. And clearly, Lauren has given you guys some information that she's done some research on, which I think everybody here agrees that shouldn't have happened. And if Lauren has an initiative to work through the Board of Education to study UPK, that's great. That would be a great thing to do through the Board of Education and the work that they do. But to kind of slide it into this committee is a little uncomfortable.
I don't understand the discomfort.
I'm gonna stop 1 second here. I'm gonna take one. I'm glad this discussion's happening because I don't know anything about UPK. This is why we need to discuss things. I don't think we should be afraid to discuss it. But two, I told them to look at all the options for universal pre-K. I take responsibility for it. I'm the one that wanted everything looked at, so it's looked at. He didn't do anything wrong. And Dr. Lauren, my understanding, did email it to the person in charge of the school board, Mary. Mary knew it was coming to us. And the school board does know that we are not happy with that. They were told about that, and it was discussed. There are miscommunications there, and the school board members are all aware of what went on. So I'm taking responsibility for all the UPK proposals being there, and I'm not afraid to say that because I think this type of discussion helps everyone understand where we are at with that. Like Eric, I never knew anything about the fact that it might be better to have them in UPK or not, and now you have that piece. I don't know. I didn't know you guys had anything to do with UPK. So this doesn't bother me that it's in here, and the way it got in here, I don't know. I'm just saying I suggested we look at all pre-K options. I wasn't afraid to look at them. Whether we submit it as a proposal or not, that's totally up to this committee, because I don't necessarily know if this is a proposal that we want to submit. It's already at the school board. They already have it. So it's not really anything we need to submit. No. Dr. Lauren's proposal did go to the school board.
Can we take a vote on that?
Can we take a vote? I'd like to just say one more thing. I am offended at the protocol and the procedure that was handled with that. That was not, the school board was not to be handing things to this committee. It was supposed to be a hands-off, and I'm offended that that happened.
I think that Joe is right. We should take it.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay. Proposal 13 to move on to the school board.
No.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Proposal 13 will not be going on.
Are we going to send a letter?
I will send a letter to Mary Bussey, the school board president, letting her know that we did vote on it and that we were offended with the protocol and procedure. Okay, proposal 14, one high school campus. The reason that this is in there is there had been a lot of talk about going to one campus. So Brian put this together so that it shows that at this particular time and for many years down the line, one campus is not going to work. So we can take that right off the board, but it gives the information that in case, there were a lot of people that thought that it could work, and until numbers were actually run, you don't know. Numbers ran. It's not going to work for 15 years. Was it?
At least 15 years.
At least 15 years.
Because you got the current kids in kindergarten now. Yeah. You actually, right now, there's 469 kids in kindergarten. In order for this proposal to come anywhere close to working, you need to have under 450 kids coming into kindergarten. Now, if you get 450 kids, that means you're maxing out the senior high school at 1,800, which Joe would never allow. So, which means that you really need to.
For fire codes, that's the way it was in the old days.
In the old days, you could just put them on top of each other, bunk beds. But so, if you get to 80% of building utilization, you need 360 kids per class to actually use 80% of West Senior. And West Senior is much bigger than East Senior. And this is under the whole premise that you would put all the high school kids in one building. So, based off of that, a lot of people talked at the beginning, a long-range plan, stuff like that. This kind of sets up a long-range plan telling people that if you get to below 450 students in a class, you can attempt to start to look at it. But you also need less than 450 for 4 consecutive years. If you have 445 one year and 460 the next, well, sorry, your count's got to start over again because those 460 kids just threw off your numbers into the high school. So it almost lets you know that when you get below this certain number for 4 straight years, then you can start looking at it. The advantage of that is when you get to that stage, those kids are in 3rd grade. Now it gives you 6 years to put together a proposal to say when these kids get to high school, can we go to a 1 high school system? So nobody's going to be running around at that point saying, let's go to 1 high school and we're going to do it in 2 years. No, you can say, here's the way to do it, and you're going to look out 6 years from the time that you get to it.
There's thresholds that are in place.
But as of right now, even now, we've always said that we're so low in our enrollment in K through 3, and that's at 1893 as far as kids go currently in the district. You're still nowhere even close.
You seeing these numbers in your sleep?
I'm
just so impressed with the numbers.
One thing I want to point out is the proposals allowing us to better utilize our buildings could eventually someday make an addition to a high school aidable if we had to look, because now if we have 1,000 kids at West Middle, the most we're ever going to have at the high school is 1,000 kids. So we're not utilizing the high school as much. So I just think that this proposal does help our long-range plans, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
Once we're better utilizing our elementary schools, say by closing 1 or 2, that will allow us to someday maybe add on to a high school to be aidable and therefore go to 1.
Right.
Am I incorrect in saying that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask, are we going to make a decision on how many of these are?
Well, that's what we need. We need to talk about that, but we have 2 more
Well,
proposed.
actually, do we really have the second one? Because that one was pretty well identified in
Okay,
here.
you want to go through with what
I'll
you...
go through the first
Yeah.
one. The first one is, first off, super impressed. Great job with that, with those 11 proposals. I just have one measly one.
And this one will fit in the same, will follow the
Yes.
same pattern. So it'll have the school facts and it'll go with the same.
The only difference and the only reason why it's not here is because I was doing, I wanted to do some academically based research to kind of, similar with, with the pre-K discussion, just to kind of justify in an academic sense.
Right.
I feel like all of these proposals need to have why it's going to benefit the student in an academic sense. I understand that our charge is to save money for the district, but first and foremost, we care about the student's education. And I said when I first sat down here that my goal is to ensure that the students who graduate from here are college ready and college prepared. And that's purely in an academic sense. And why do I say that? Is because I see the students that graduate from here, and I've seen them at a number of different institutions. I actually have, and I've forwarded the numbers of students who test into quote-unquote remedial or not college-ready information to the district, just so they could take a look at it. I'm willing to work with them from my professional perspective to intervene earlier on so that students, as they graduate, do become college-ready. And believe me, West Seneca graduates are at the top, similar to what we expect them to be. But there is always great improvements that need to be done. My proposal, the proposal I was charged with, was to look at the closing of 2 elementaries, the closing of Winchester and Potters Road. Closing of Winchester, you would take the students and move them to Northwood Elementary School, and so Northwood would stay in East Feeding School, so you would not have an elementary school in that northwest corner of West Seneca. You are able to begin making room for West Middle to become a 5-8, obviously. That's what our goal is. Potters Road closing, you're looking at kind of breaking up those students a couple different ways. You would take 50 to 75 students and move them to Northwood, move the rest of the 2/3 to Allendale Elementary, which would help fill it up a little bit. And again, going to 5 to 8 model. And another part of the proposal is to have West Elementary, once the district offices move out, if which is actually part of the proposal, sorry about that, to move special education children as a permanent home is in the space vacated by the district. Now, what are the pros to that? First one is you'd have equal distribution of students throughout the district. Special education students would be in the West L classroom, intermingled with other classrooms. There'd be a consistency with environment for their needs. You could create therapy rooms. You would have a cost savings of not replicating services at other buildings. You would not have personnel traveling between buildings to provide service. We did have, dare I bring it up, pre-K, consolidating to West L, and I think we've outlined the pre-K discussion extensively. And again, I am doing research on pre-K and special education in one building. One of the cons to special ed being in one building is that with the rest of our students, I mean, they would lose the interaction with students with special needs, and you know that I think there is a value both for both sets of students. You know, being in an environment with students with special needs, and also for the special needs students being in an environment with additional peers.
Brian, would that, I don't interrupt, but would that violate 504 stuff?
I mean, are you saying all the special needs children of the entire district?
No, it just,
to that
No,
level?
I believe it was just the, what did we decide?
it would just be the district special ed classes, so it wouldn't be people that would have,
not IEPs.
it would be kids that were in a special class. And
Like the 611, 811, 1211,
Yes.
Yeah.
those ones?
That's a lot of kids, bringing them all into one building, and
I just
as a
don't
parent
want-
of an ex-special ed child, I would find that to be inappropriate, because on her IP it says mainstream and specials.
Well, they
So
would be.
How do you mainstream specials when you've got?
I think
And
that's
that's,
why he's got it
that's
as a
what I
negative.
listed as one of the disadvantages
That's a
to
big
that.
disadvantage to
Wouldn't
the
that be,
children.
that's a regulation thing too, isn't it? Because
Yeah, so
the
I guess
district is
just for clarification, right, Joe? So I think when this was originally thought of, it was, I don't know if it came from you.
It was thought of more as
Yeah.
a therapy,
For
more,
the children with life skills, not
Yeah.
lived experience.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So-
I'm sorry if
Yeah. So one of the things that's just important for,
Mhm.
you know, just, and I forgot to add this when this conversation happened months ago, is that children that require life skills classrooms
Okay.
are currently at Northwood and Clinton Street, okay? Those children feed into East Middle, and then they feed into East Senior. So really, we actually are doing similarly what you're proposing, except the children are currently at Northwood and Clinton. They feed up to East Middle, and then they feed up to East Senior.
Okay.
So when we did those tours, you might remember, you know, we saw some therapy classrooms in
Mhm.
East Middle.
that was
and-
one of the things that sparked
Right,
it.
right. So, so children who need specialized classrooms that are that are bearing Regents, diplomas, but need 811 support are currently, we have 3 classrooms at Winchester, and then those classrooms feed up to West Middle, and then those classrooms feed up to West Senior. So there's a balance of specialized classrooms on both sides of town, so really, I want to applaud your thinking to maximize therapeutic resources and equipment. We're actually doing it, but it's on the east side of town. So it's just as you're getting ready to turn that in, just keep that in mind. We're actually doing that, but it's on the east side.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
And I
Thank you.
appreciate the clarification
Sure.
from everybody.
Yeah.
With that. Let's see. Potters Road, closing that, you increase Allendale's population. You would make room in West Middle. You would do your best to, I think that one of the, and I apologize, the redrawing of the district lines is going to be critical to every single proposal, and I think that should be in everything. But the goal to keep neighborhoods together. One disadvantage would be the fact that you would be taking some Potters Road kids and bringing them across West Seneca to Northwood, and that's where you could then shift the Allendale population up to an east feeding school. But Winchester closing, one of the pros would be that Northwood has the same character development program. The entire school moves as one. The kids with from Winchester, because it's a lighthouse program, and they have that strong character development, can act as peer influencers for those at Northwood. Obviously, more parking for parents, better playground. Some of the cons is that other students from other elementary schools not intermingled. Oh no, forget that. Scratch that one. Pre-K travel to West L, moving students out of their neighborhood, and I already mentioned bringing them across town and passing a couple of elementary schools. Increased transportation cost. One of the pieces to this as well, similar to every other proposal, is that high school students would also stay within their high school. You'd have the activity planning for both for those students who are in middle school and high school. Now you'd have east and west, and then at Winchester you would lose the auditorium and the lighthouse school status. So that's where we are on that.
Okay.
Questions?
Northwood is still an East feeding school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So they'll be going to east
Mm-hmm.
side.
Yes.
There's
And then
redistricting or not?
There
in your
is
proposal?
redistricting, and in this, I mean, in the original one, you had the northwest corner of Potter's Road traveling to Northwood. You know, again, that's one of the I think that's one of the disadvantages, is that, you know, they're passing a couple of areas,
I just remember.
and then the redistricting with the line, as our conversations evolve, you know, would move some of the Allendale kids to an east feeding, and then allow placement into some of the west feeding schools.
Did we get this emailed? Did we get this emailed?
No, not yet. I was, like I said, it was the research. Now I have a better place to do that. I will have it emailed out probably by the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll have a full week to take a look at it and provide feedback and go from there.
Okay.
But what are we going to present to the school board?
Right, that's where we're getting. So the question is if we present all of the proposals that we have minus proposal 13, so that's 13, 14 proposals.
Mm-hmm.
If they all go on, or if there's anything within here that we as a commission feel we want to scrap at this point from going forward.
Two questions. One, Brian, were you able to ever pull anything out about that other proposal I was interested in, or no?
I haven't had a chance.
Okay, I just want to throw out there, one thing that I kind of was looking at with Brian's numbers, I was curious about a Northwood / Winchester or Northwood / Potters closing. And I don't know if that's something, like how hard it is to put together an email out. Brian was concerned because that falls under your realm of two schools. I don't know if using the numbers, if you're able to look at that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Just because, you know, we're kind of not having an entire section corner of the town closed, but we're still, because we need to consider two schools as one of our options. It kind of just helps out. I was looking at low enrollment and stuff.
So that would be, tell me that again, Ed.
Northwood and Winchester, or Northwood and Potters. Like what the ramifications of, similar to what Brian did with his proposals 1 through whatever. And obviously Brian didn't want to step on Eric's toes, and I never had a chance to meet with Eric. So I just want to throw that out there that I
Purposely.
do what?
Purposely you didn't meet with me.
Right, okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Would Allendale become an East feeding school then?
That, again, you guys are the, like, it was just something looking at the numbers. I'm thinking Allendale, I don't know. And that's why I didn't want the proposal just to be not looked at, because, and no offense to your proposal, but I know one of the downfalls is you've got kids from the west corner of the town going to the east middle,
Right.
and I know that's not necessarily going to be popular, but if we need to look at two schools closing, mothballing, now that mothballing is an option, I would like to look at it, and if the committee is okay with that being emailed to us to look at, since we don't have Eric's proposal in writing anyway, and he's got to email his out, can we also look at that and talk about it?
Well,
When are we
there
gonna
is
decide to do that?
we are turning things
Our
into the
meeting is-
board on November.
November 3rd, so I need to have things to the district office no later than Wednesday of next week for it to be collated and copied and all that jazz.
So we have very limited time to look at your
Yes, I
proposal.
will work on that.
So.
Is that, but only if the board's cool with it.
Okay, so getting back to Joan. Joan is asking, are we submitting the entire packet to the Board of Education Or are we going through and saying not viable, not viable?
I consider this
I
as
think
one
we should have a
proposal.
vote. I think we should have a vote
Okay.
and include Eric's package, and I think it should be a vote that, silent vote, okay? And I think that we should vote on it, and then those proposals go to the school board. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's so many things that it'd take them 100 years to read it.
Well,
No,
here's
it
the
just
thing.
took us 2 hours.
I mean, a lot of us on this committee are parents of different schools. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of my kids or anybody else's kids,
Right.
that it's fair to submit the proposals that have an option of closing each school. So you don't have parents coming back saying, well, why didn't you send that proposal in? But you sent this one in. And let the school board take control of it and say, well, we're going to throw this one out, we're going to throw that one out. I don't really think it should be our decision.
The school board is also not going to just choose one of these proposals. They're going to look at it all as a package and then come up with their thoughts on it. And we're going to be going back to talk with them about this stuff more.
I'm wondering
So-
if we should be calling all of these proposals. Like, I'm thinking of number 14. Is that really a proposal, or is it just some additional information that gives them background? And it just we talked about how that's just giving them the information that this is not a viable option for 15 years.
Like,
So
I
to
think
call it a
that
proposal,
one's
I don't think, and I also wonder about
involving-
calling the UPK ones
Right.
proposals. I think that they are more background
The
information that
ones involving the elementary school specifically.
I think the ones involving the 6 elementary schools, closing one school each, and then possibly the one
you know what?
closing
Right.
the 2 schools.
I agree with you, Amy. I almost consider this an informational packet, and if we want to say our committee thinks you should look at these couple, but I definitely think the school board should have this as an informational
I
packet.
think we were
And-
just doing the retitles.
Yeah.
We were charged to gather information.
Right.
And Lisa says it, we're a fact-finding group, we found a lot of facts, and we forwarded on, and then because then what ends up happening is then we're taking the onus of what we feel is valuable when our charge, and I think rightly so, is we looked at everything, and, we had great individuals who picked up the torch and looked at every single possibility, and we should forward that, and just so that the public knows that we're being transparent. There is a possibility that if we pick and choose one of these not to put forward, that, okay, there's something wrong with the transparency. We're taking everything that we just presented, we're giving it to the school board, and we're saying, listen, here you go. We did what you asked us to do. Our charge was to find out the information for everything, and we went, I believe, above and beyond that. And from there, let them make the decision.
Well, Eric, I might agree with it, to give them all the proposals, but to have this commission kind of vote on them and saying, like, proposal number 2 got so many votes, and proposal number 4 got so many votes. Just so that we kind of prioritize.
I just think we need to retitle some of that as information, or I don't know what the right wording is because it's 9:20 and
I know exactly what you're saying.
you know what I'm saying? And you were shaking your head. I think there's 7 proposals, and then there's a bunch of
So,
information that
I-
follows.
Because I agree we gather the facts and give it to them, but I think when they're labeled proposals, I think there's some merit to, this committee has worked on this and either to prioritize or what we think are the most viable. Like for example, a couple things from the very first 2 meetings that stuck out in my mind, and it might have been one of you ladies here, somebody mentioned they went through redistricting, and they brought up something I didn't even think of, where they said, it doesn't matter what school we go to, as long as the building stays together. And that stuck out in my mind as something that, was that you? Okay, I thought, that's something that stuck in my mind I didn't think of, that I thought was something valuable. I also think some of these proposals that talk about moving the kids that were moved to East Elementary again, see, to me, it was fact-finding and we should give them that information, but I think if we as a committee, if there's some things, maybe it's not, like I like how you said, not calling proposals, but maybe some things that we say, if you can avoid or we think are priorities.
I think recommendations.
As a recommendation, I agree with what you're saying about, we don't want to say, well, close this school, don't close that. But certain things like, if possible, keep the buildings together, because we think that's an important thing. So whatever one of these you choose or how you go about doing it, if this committee agreed that that was a priority, do that. If the priority is to make sure that we don't put the families that went through it at East Elementary through it again, so maybe it might not be saying we think proposal 1 is the best, and proposal 4, but some certain overlying things that will be recommendations as they look at this, and kind of like at what you said, they might take part of 1, part of 4, and kind of put it together.
Could that be kind of like an initial cover to the?
Yep.
Yeah, something
packet?
along those lines, which might get kind of a consensus of what we all want. Give them all the information and fact finding. Give them an understanding that we don't want to single anybody out, but there are some things that we think are priorities, and then still show, as Joan pointed out, what we think might work the best, or pitfalls to look out for.
Yeah.
I think
There's a whole.
Well said, Joe.
I think we're hung up on the word proposal. We call it
Right.
I think option, right, I'm with
Call
Yeah,
you.
them
'cause
call them options.
if
And
we-
if we want to do a cover proposal, we think these things are important to consider in your decisions.
If we are going to start voting on certain ones, like we may end up voting as a group, a majority that we don't even want to consider 2 schools closing. We may consider, there may be, who knows, if we took a vote, we may all vote we don't want to close any schools.
I don't think
So-
that's our role.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
No, we're not.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think,
And you know,
I
like,
think coming
we're
out with the
recommending
priority,
values.
because they look at these, as you pointed out,
So,
that the priorities are, we think that these are certain pitfalls, these are certain things.
Right.
As you look at this committee, we know we're not charged with A, B, and C, but you are. From all the research and time that we've spent, these are what we think to look out for, and things that we think you should look at strongly as options. And then let them take all the information and fix it.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
Yep, so let's go ahead and make a list. I will jot if, what we think, our recommendations in general, or any things that we want to have clear to them, and we will put that as a cover letter. Along with the cover letter, we are going to give them the list of our values, that we worked endlessly on proposing and getting together. I think that they need to have that in their packet. I'm also going to make sure that they have all of the questions that came in online, so that they know what the community in general has asked or shared. And then the 2 things that we really looked at was keeping a 5-8 focus on the east side and the west side, getting the administration out of Westell, and making the program as strong as possible for our children. And really the program
in every
piece,
building, and
yes,
there's matching.
yes,
So-
for all of our, for across the board, K through 12.
I want to bring.
Right.
So back to the 5 through 8 program. There's even stuff that we haven't even looked at yet, as we're making recommendations to the board. Do we recommend them to do 5 through 8 next year? Do we recommend them to do them in a staggered process?
I
And all
don't
that,
think
like, where
we
does that-
necessarily
Figure
need
that
to
out.
do that. I think that can really be their,
Okay, so
How
what are
fast
we,
they're gonna-
how are we stating the 5 through 8 program?
But if
But
we,
say
if we,
that's something that we value as far as.
we value a
Right.
mirrored image on the east and west side for 5-8 education.
But they should look at the time frame then.
Yeah, they would look
Well,
at
they
that.
could want to do it next year, and it might not happen for 3.
Right.
You know.
So we're not giving them a proposal to do it next year,
No.
an option.
an option. And then secondly, now that we know some more information, are we recommending we move the district offices out with every option, or are we going to throw in that one last to look at the cost of separating it at that school? Is that something we're adding?
Well, no, you were the one who brought it up, that said, it'd be.
It's an
kind of-
option.
Yeah, an option
Yeah.
but-
So we want to almost
gotta
add
remember to put on there too,
a
that we
caveat.
don't wanna move those families from East that got moved last year.
And I and again, I'm just one voice. Having gone through and going to East Elementary almost weekly and talking to those parents and the teachers and the staff. I know Kathy went through this too. What they went through, and it all worked out great, but what they went through, to me, in the open meetings and everything, I would just say, to me, that's a priority, that those families don't have to go through that again. And I think there's enough options that have been presented here that
Correct.
they wouldn't have to. There's a couple that they would, but majority of these, they wouldn't have to.
Well, I think like the closed Clinton option, we know that's one of the lesser,
but the board
but-
could do it.
Yeah.
They can do it. They can
Yeah.
do whatever they want.
Exactly,
Right.
they can.
So
But the
we
other-
can't
the
just,
other
we can't
option too-
dismiss
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
That Joe and I did deal with last year was the people not knowing where they were going. And not just the parents, the staff and everything.
Right.
And I would hope, and I know it, and we can't tell them what to do, but I would hope that they would just rip off that Band-Aid and do what they're gonna do and do it at once. Because the town cannot go through this every 2 years. We can't survive. People are just at each other's throats, and we can't keep doing that.
See, like
to
as a
this
resident,
town.
what I want is I want it done over time, but I want a plan put together now. So it's kind of the same concept you have. You're just
want it
getting.
but over time, okay, but then
You know.
that plan has to be right
Let
there
me-
in front of them
Yeah,
this year.
let me throw out a hypothetical. Let's say we want to close two elementary schools. Well, maybe we don't want to close 2 next year. Maybe we want to close 1 next year, and then our goal within 3 years is to close the other one. I would love it to be identified now,
Exactly.
so we could start,
Yes.
moving on. It doesn't have to rip off the Band-Aid. It could be rip off. No, we're going to rip off the Band-Aid. Hey, this is coming.
Right.
Like a plan. I've always fought for a long-term plan, whether long-term is 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. I am sick of every year wondering what's going to happen next. And I live the closest to Winchester, and I'm not looking to move, but I know there's a lot of families throughout the town that, if they're living in the town, they would like to know what their next 10 years of life might look like. Obviously, there's always change, but I would like to see some sort of and I think the school board will be made aware of that we need.
I just think we just can't keep doing this year
Yeah.
after year.
I don't want to have this committee in 2 more years having an argument about should we close the school.
I wasn't involved in the prior changing, but it seems to me I heard that it was presented as to what it was gonna go, and then it came out, well, there's options you can choose. And that caused a lot of problems, I believe, right?
Well,
Are we saying that we would like the school board to come out to say, this is the decision?
It's heart-wrenching.
It dragged on. It was too long. It was, the hard part about it is that there was a decision made, but then because I think the district felt bad for the families and wanted to accommodate them, there were all these meetings, and I think parents thought they had a say in what was going to happen, and that they could come together with other options and change things. And I think it should have just been a Band-Aid.
But some changes
This
were
is
made
what's
based on what the parents spoke up about, or some things were.
Yes and no.
So I think,
yes and no.
but I think that's what we're doing now is we're trying to
Right.
get that process taken care of before.
Right, but I think it was harder on the children with, well, this might happen and this might happen and this. I think if there's, it should be transparent and it should be, this is it.
I also think if we look back, hindsight being 20/20, with the amount of money the state cut and the district trying as best as they could to keep things as they could, I think it just became untenable. And then I also think as they were exploring options, as this was going on, it got out because they didn't know what would be the possibility. We didn't know what money's come from the state. And then this kind of got out, and each, I joked almost with people that the good news was we were getting information every step of the way, but the bad news was we were getting information every step of the way, because you gotta remember too, were we gonna have 50 staff members leave or 150 staff members leave? Are we gonna, and if we only had 50, we might have closed 3 buildings. I mean, I don't wanna speak for the district, I'm just saying we didn't know. But you're right, I think the good news is now we lived through, sadly we went through that these are all things that I have to believe that, because this is the first step, we're all sitting there to make sure it doesn't
And the
occur again.
transparency, I think, is important.
Absolutely.
The other thing we got to keep in mind is in less than a 2-year period, we could have a brand new majority on the school board of people that want completely different things. So our recommendations made public at least help keep everything knowing how the community wants it. So,
All right, so it's 9:30, so we really need to focus and try to get this.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
I've been thinking about this a lot. My kids really aren't too affected by any of this. I have one in 5th who's going to middle school. I don't care. It's West Seneca School, whatever. Another one in 3rd who, no matter where they'll go, have another year. No big deal. But just thinking about how every proposal affects some family in some way, going from one school to another, I feel like it should be in a proposal, and I don't know if anybody else agrees with me on this. If you don't, it's okay, but I feel like there needs to be some sort of acceptance. I know we talked about it before.
A transition team.
Yes. Some of the things from one school that kids are coming from, put a few things in another school, just kind of, because every school, every student stands to lose something that they find exciting to them or that they like. I mean, I don't know what other schools do, but at West Elementary, a big thing for me, and I'm a big promoter of it, is mandatory recess every day. It's awesome. But my kids will be going to, I think they're one of the only schools in elementary schools in West Seneca that does that. So these kids are going from one school that has this fun half hour to a school that doesn't, or the Leader in Me program going to a school that doesn't, or the Pillar program going to a school that doesn't. I just feel like there should be some concepts taken from one school and added to another to help these kids still feel at home, even though they will adapt, everybody does, but it just would be nice to see those things kind of come together if we're going to do this permanently, just to kind of see the schools kind of work together and change things everywhere.
And again, we're here for the kids, and we're here to make that an easy transition. So I think one of the things that it sounds like you're saying is if we put in as our recommendation, it doesn't have to go in our options, but it can go in that cover letter, that we would encourage the Board of Education to set up a transition team, or I don't know if that's what we want to call it or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think a lot of we can work with what we saw was really positive that happened from the East movement over to Clinton. There were a lot of really positive things. So we learned some good lessons. Let's put those back into play with whatever children are affected.
Yeah.
So do we want to call it?
So it sounds like you want a comprehensive transition plan.
Yep. Okay.
I know we had talked about it before, but just, I just feel like it would be nice for the kids to know.
Okay, so
maybe teachers and parents from each school, that type of thing.
Yeah, everybody just kind of come together and work together and,
Have some of those familiar things that already.
Yep.
I'm just all about togetherness and familiarity and.
Okay.
It's easier for the parents to acclimate.
So.
They did do some of those things. I mean,
Right, and part of that is learning from some of those things that worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so we're gonna include in this that our recommendations that we wanted a mirror image for our 5-8 students for middle school for their options, for their
educational
for their
options?
for their program. Yep,
options.
program. Okay, and then
Recommendation not to.
we want a recommendation to clearly look at not moving the families that were affected from the last redistricting from East Elementary to Clinton Street. Okay. Okay, and then a comprehensive transportation team set up with the possibility of parents of teachers of transition. What did I say? Sorry, it's getting late. I'm sorry.
It also sounded like everybody was in agreement that one of the recommendations would be to ask the board to have a long-term plan.
Long-term plan.
You want to define long-term in years?
No. Yeah, only because I think we've all said there could be some changes in 5 years with respect to enrollment, or some of this is fluid, and so to lock them into a long-term plan beyond.
Well, plus you said when the audit was done, that was one of the faults. That West Seneca didn't have a long-term plan.
Yep, that's right.
I think that page that Brian did where it does state, until you have this many kids, that's
right.
This informational number 14 is really good.
Yeah, I think I would even like to see what level students we need to get down to before we start looking at a second or a third school. I think 3 is probably the most feasibly that would ever happen, or am I misspeaking on that?
I can't even think of what I call that.
Maybe feel a lot better.
Okay. All right. Anything else in that cover?
Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Okay.
For supporting.
So what my thought is, Ed and I, like I said, Ed and I have met. So on Monday, the board will get, the board and central office administration will all get a binder, and in that binder, there will be this cover letter. There will be this packet from Joe. There'll be all of the options, and then all of the additional information.
So you're actually saying we have how many options? How many options are we actually saying?
Just take proposal off the top of everything and just
Yep.
put it on the front page.
Yeah,
Options.
Right?
Well, okay, I thought
Yeah.
were
Are we
making
good?
these
Are we
more
okay with
informational than
options?
anything else.
Well, there's,
They really are options. I mean, we're not, we're not.
But just 13's not gonna be in here at all.
oh, information.
Right.
No, 13
So
will
there'll be
not be.
16 proposals,
So
options?
14 will become 13.
I'm like,
Yep.
Unless
And
you want
really,
14
the,
is not.
In your comments, Lisa, do we want to say that?
no.
Goal.
we look- and I don't know if I'm speaking for everybody, maybe I'm not even speaking for myself. We look, we look forward to being involved in this continuing process.
And I was going to mention that when we met with Mrs. Bussey, one of the things that she said was that she anticipates they will have 5 to 6 meetings privately in the public's eye, but there may be some need for executive session, and at that particular point, Ed and I very well could be called in, and depending on any additional information that they want, we could look to other people within the commission to bring with us. Like for instance, I said I would definitely want Brian at my side with his number information, because he's got that information, basically, for the recall. So, we're really looking at that.
I would like to go on the record. I was involved in that committee with Brian, and he has a great mind.
Yeah.
And, we all contributed some
Right.
thoughts and
But he really ran it.
But his knowledge base was invaluable.
And the amount of time
Yes.
that he put into doing that was huge. Huge.
Lisa, we don't want to put pre-K in there at all, though, do we?
That's not going to be proposals, Joan. That's just going to be additional information. So it would be what was currently saying 10, 11, and 12
So 9.
would just be information, additional information.
And 14, which is not 13.
Right. And 14 would be an additional information. It would just be resource information for them.
9 plus add.
So we're gonna,
So what I'll do is I'll redo mine. Instead of saying proposal 1 through 9, I'll do options 1 through 9. Eric's will say options 10, 11, and 12.
Mhm.
And then I will do these other ones. I will say resource 1, resource 2,
Resource
resource
is a good
3,
word.
resource
Yes,
4.
resource is
So
awesome.
it takes out.
And then this will be an additional resource here. This will be,
This
additional.
sheet here I have to redo. I just noticed that my each numbers were wrong.
Okay. All right.
My copy and
So
paste in Excel
they're going to
failed me when I
have,
did this.
so the presentation
No,
on.
it worked well. I just never changed
The
it, but
presentation
copy and
on
pasted.
Monday will start out with why we're in this position, which is what the state has done to us via state aid, and our declining enrollment. That is why we have worked to put this together. That we have worked on fact finding. Here you go, and we will run them through. We're actually going to do. Between now and then, there'll be PowerPoint slides of all of these options so that guests that are in the audience will have the option to be able to see them on the screen. We are going to need to get a school map too in there for them. The questions online, the values, and I think that'll be it.
Putting in this account for all the kids too.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I started.
We'll do it, just so you know, Kat did it, when I revise it, you guys all, when
Yes.
she
I'll shoot it
emails
back
it, it'll
out.
be correct.
Oh,
My east
I
numbers
didn't
were,
know 500.
no, my east numbers were, my east numbers are wrong.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. I copy and pasted and never
I'm gonna
updated.
write
so-
thrown out on that one, so.
I just want
Yes.
to. For those who got here just a little bit later, I did say that, and I made a recommendation, and I don't know how the rest of the group feels about it. We went out, the administration went out, we operated in an open forum to take questions from the community. Do we want to recommend that the school board does the exact same thing? They are the elected officials, I'll say it again, they are the elected officials by the community. Should they be put in the same position that we voluntarily put ourselves into and have them answer questions and hear comments from the community themselves?
I think it's up to them.
It is, but I agree,
But
because
can
I'm
we
hearing.
make
I think they should.
Does the group feel comfortable making a recommendation doing that? If it's no, that's fine.
No, I
But
think
I
we
just feel that I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, because I really feel that we did a lot. I mean, it was on TV, it was on, I mean, it was, we put ourselves out there, and the administration was there answering questions as well. They're the only piece that are not, and they're the elected officials. That's my only, so I'm just gonna put that out there. I don't want it to be a long discussion, but.
Okay.
Lisa, is there gonna be a spokesman for this group? Are you gonna be the spokesman?
The spokesperson at the board meeting.
Yes.
Ed and I, just so you know, Ed and I will be doing the presentation. The board will not be commenting on any of the proposals on Monday night. Just letting you know. They will be getting that, they will be reviewing that, and then their meetings will be following. But at this point, they have not gotten the information. It came from Mrs. Bussey that they were to stay out of the process. So this is all new to them. This should all be, you know, I mean, they may have watched the videos, but
Yeah, they all watch. Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know, so the idea is this is new, so they will not be commenting. It will be just like a regular school board where, you know, a presentation happens, but there will be no comments.
So you're
That's what
going
we've
to
been
be
told.
handing out the packets that evening. That'll be the first time.
Correct.
I
Yes.
thought you
Well-
said you were gonna be giving this to them on Wednesday.
Wednesday, I have to have it to Nicole to copy, and then I have to collate it all and all that jazz.
Usually they give it, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but usually they give the board everything they need to see before the board meeting.
Not this.
Oh, not this, okay.
Lisa's talking about putting together binders with
Yeah,
lots
they're
of
going to have
information.
binders with all
There's
of
no
the
way
stuff.
Nicole will be able to, you know, make that a
Okay,
PDF
okay.
and put it
I
as a
thought it
backup.
was gonna be
yeah.
like everything else. we
No,
have
they'll
to
get
give
it that
the board
night
beforehand.
on the
Okay.
board night. Yeah,
But I believe they're they're
Yeah.
probably watching the videos.
Sure.
So
that's fine.
Okay, so
You would
getting
hope.
back to Eric's comment, would you like me to add under recommendations, along with the mirrored image, the long-term plan, the not moving families from East Elementary, comprehensive transition plan, and an open forum? Would you like that listed?
So,
Open forum, yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Open forum to explain the proposals, or open forum to explain their decisions?
Or to get feedback?
To get feedback, I mean, we're volunteers and we did it, and Eric's right, they're elected. You know, we put them in those seats. They have a responsibility to us to give people an opportunity to comment or ask questions.
because
I think.
this is the first time the public is actually seeing the actual proposals.
True.
So the recommendation is for them to receive our proposals, and at some point before they make a decision, options.
Well, the reality is they're going to get calls anyway, because when East Elementary closed, I mean, that was, parents were calling board members up. They're going to get the calls
Right, and I
anyway.
believe the protocol of the board is everything gets referred to the president.
They were
Well,
calling
no,
everyone.
I mean,
I'm
if
just
you,
saying,
if you
they're
email,
going to get the calls
if
anyway.
you email Frank, he forwards the email to the president,
Right.
and then she decides to share it with the board,
Right,
with
but
everyone.
I'm saying when East closed, I know the parents were calling all the board members.
Right.
So they're going to get the calls anyway,
Right.
is what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay, so moving back, let's take a vote. If under recommendations to the school board, we recommend that an open forum be held to receive community questions,
Yeah,
feedback,
community
concerns. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I think they'll
Motion
squash most
carried.
of their issues after the decision's made.
Okay.
Probably the whole problem with the East Elementary close is people didn't know about till it was done. If you are able to voice your concerns ahead of time, and they address it, and when they pronounce what their decision was, they can address those concerns and maybe not have 18 million phone calls.
Questions and concerns. Okay, all right, anything else?
Just so you do know, because with my proposals, we have the shifting of the lines. I am set to meet with Kevin tomorrow at 10 to kind of see what would work and come up with an estimated attendance at each of the schools.
Great.
Do you?
If
and
we
what
can get that, I would love to add it. If
Because
that's
my
what you're
thought is,
asking.
I would love. My initial thought is doing the Union Road as the divide. My initial thought there is I want to get the K through 12 figures at each grade level, because that allows my mind then to do the other math if I have it broken out by grade level. But then we can see how much it evens out, because that's what Kevin said. He said it evens it out, but we don't have the numbers to back it.
Right.
We're going by his mouth, and I have no
Yeah.
reason to doubt him. But then with these other ones, I could say, you know, if we had this as the line, this is what the anticipated enrollment is at this school, this school, this school, and then break it out that way. And then we, you know, I told him that these aren't set in stone by any shape of the imagination. It's just to give an idea as to how much are we really increasing utilization at the schools.
Gotcha.
That's kind of what we're
Yep.
doing. We want to make sure that by doing this, we're
Well, we talked about
increasing it.
equity. We talked about equity for all of our students, and that we might want to put that into the recommendation piece also, that we were really looking for equity for all of our children.
And I mean,
Numbers,
redistricting, I'm
opportunities,
sorry,
equity, how?
I think all.
Oh,
And
well,
academic experience.
whatever the
Right,
proper
right.
word is for redistricting, like the lines, I can't necessarily be done exactly now anyway, because like say my street was near a border, right now I've got like 4 4th and 5th graders on my street and only 1 kindergarten kid. I mean that, you know, that, and that's everywhere. I'm assuming that, I don't know how bad it shifts around, but we can't say you have to redistrict right down this line. in
no, but
2
what
you know,
we can do is now is we can say
generally
with the general
it'll
area
work.
here,
Yeah.
this is what the enrollment would be
And
at
I
this
think
school,
that
this school, this
we're
school.
looking at
And then Kevin does his magic if
right.
it ever goes through.
Yeah. So, okay, under recommendations, equity for a complete academic experience for all students, mirrored image for 5-8 education for our middle school program, a long-term plan, an open forum for questions, concerns, not to move families that were moved during the East Elementary closing, and a comprehensive transition plan, including parents and teachers and administrators. Okay. All right. All right, my friends.
Do we do anything like do our best to keep neighborhoods together?
Yes.
Because I know that's within my stuff that I'm doing, but I
Yep.
don't know if we want that in
Well,
the
there's,
main.
there's a lot of things in your stuff that Eric, is your proposal going to mirror the layout?
Yes.
Yeah,
of this
Talk
one?
about that.
definitely is. And I'm actually, offline, I'm gonna talk with Brian afterwards to discuss what information he
Okay.
might need for when he meets with Kevin.
All right. Anything else? All right. I can't thank you enough for your time, your energy, your willingness to be here. We will be presenting on November 3rd. Okay. It is board recognition night. So, yeah. So we will come right after that. So they're going to dismiss the paid kids and, move that along. Public comment will occur after our presentation. So,
Really, double hearing after? Really long night.
bring your jammies.
It's after, so we
All right. Okay. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great evening.
I'm gonna text you once at 9 minutes with my whole name.